FY25 preliminary budget hearing for the Department of Youth and Community Development. I'm Councilmember Althea Stevens, Chair of Committee on Children and Youth Services. This morning, we'll be discussing the fiscal 2025 preliminary budget expenses for DYCD, which stands at $1.1 billion. This funding includes $54.8 million in personnel to support the headcount of 553 positions. Majority of the budget comprises of, other than personnel services, $1.1 billion. This fiscal budget is $234.5 million, less than the fiscal 2024 adopted budgets. This is partially as a result of council initiatives, which are typically not reflected in the budget at adoption, but also includes PEGS, program to eliminate the gap, actions in both the November and preliminary plan. We have to ensure the city is making true investments in our young people. As we are seeing the census rates increase in juvenile justice centers, while at the same time PEGs and programs that will prevent young people from becoming justice involved. So I want to get a better understanding of the impacts and the logic regarding the reduction of agency programs and services. Now is not the time to reduce our investment in the future of the city. DYCD's fiscal 2025 preliminary budget has only one new need of $4 million. Does the agency believe this is a significant resource to meet the needs of our youngest New Yorkers? An increased commitment for the city to expand and strengthen those pathways for success for children and youth will yield countless dividends for the city. The council has pushed the administration to expand shelter services and capacity for young people experiencing homelessness in DYCD youth shelters. With the influx of asylum seekers, the need for providing a safe space for individuals to reside while receiving necessary wraparound support has heightened. DYCD's youth employment program provides the city youth with paid experience. However, we need to start reimagining the workforce for young people because SYP and Work, Learn, Grow is not enough. We need to find more ways to give young people an opportunity to develop professional skills and networking. They enable the youth to learn and enhance skills, develop productive work habits, and strengthen social and leadership skills. Hence, I want to see more investments made to the initiatives that lead to direct exposure and access to paid workforce programs that are designated to keep youth positively engaged and learn valuable skills. Finally, we have to ensure that our organizations providing critical service to our youth receive fair contracts and adequate funding to pay and retain staff and run the programs successfully. Outstanding payments to contract services providers for youth services and other human service agencies must immediately resolve and avoid moving forward. DYCD has been tasked with managing the preparation of the city's next generation of leaders to their full potential and provide a great path for leaders to come. This committee wants to ensure that all DYCD programs are served as many young people as possible at the highest quality as possible. And to do so, they must have sufficient resources. Our city's budget is a moral obligation to the community members that we represent. And as a council, our responsibility is to ensure that the budget is adequate, transparent, and accountable for all New Yorkers. As the chair of Children and Youth Services and with deep roots in the nonprofit sector, I want to continue to advocate for accountability, accuracy, and to ensure that the budget we adopt reflects the multifaceted needs of young people and families citywide. This hearing is a vital part of the process. I expect DYCD will be responsive to the questions and concerns of council members. I look forward to an active engagement with the administration for over the next few months to ensure that the fiscal 2025 adopted budget meets the goals the council has set out. We want to ensure that the program for youth and young adults are equipped and serving everyone in need. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the A-team that's here with me today in chambers and back at the district office, Sandra Gray, financial analyst to the committee, Ali, unit head, Christine Yamati, counsel to the committee. You would think I would say it right by now, right? But I haven't, I'm sorry. Elizabeth Arts, policy analyst to the committee. I would like to acknowledge the council members who are here to join me today. We have Councilmember Linda Lee, Councilmember Junie Menon, and over to council, who will now swear in the administration.
Hi, good morning. If everyone from the administration could please raise your right hand.
Everybody has testified because we're not going to do the.
Yeah, everyone at once, please.
Thank you.
Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions? Thank you. You may begin when ready.
Chair Stevens and members of the Committee on Children and Youth. I am DYC Commissioner Keith Howard, and I'm joined today by First Deputy Commissioner Alan Chang and Chief Financial Officer Navita Bailey. We are pleased to be here to discuss the fiscal 2025 preliminary budget. The budget stands at $1.1 billion. It is comprised of $877 million, or 77.7%, in the city tax levy funds, $141 million, or 12.5%, in intercity funds, $99 million, or 8.8 million, in federal funds, and $11 million, or about 1%, in state funding. This budget demonstrates Mayor Adams' strong commitment to young people and families. It will support DYCD's investment in programs to alleviate the effects of poverty and to provide opportunities for New Yorkers and communities to flourish. As you know, we are deep into planning for the 2024 Summer Youth Employment Program. And I would like to say thank you to the Council for your strong support of the program. New York City again provides 100,000 summer youth opportunities for young people ages 14 through 24 at more than 17,000 work sites. Last summer, which was the 60th anniversary of the program, and it was celebrated in a very amazing and real way. We are more than pleased that 30 city council members hosted summer youth employment workers, and for this summer, we hope that all 51 will participate. And I really want to thank the chair, Chair Stevens, you and just being a real partner in pushing your fellow council members to every year increase the participation of young people in summer youth employment program. You've been a real champion and a real partner in that space. To reach a wide range of young people, we offer the application and marketing material in 9 languages. About 11,500 participants were part of tailored experience for youth with barriers to employment, including youth with disabilities, youth experiencing homelessness, and youth who are just as involved. Our program reached nearly 16,000 youth from communities at high risk of gun violence, and over 13,000 of our participants were residents of NYCHA development. Might I add, this was the highest number served to date. More than 20,000 were part of the Career Ready program, which works with schools to align the summer youth experience with high school academic learning. We released the 2024 application for our participants and work sites on January 22nd, 2024, the earliest application released ever. We are focused on program quality. We believe that this early release will give participants more time to prepare for this summer experience and give providers time to work with the new We have held 25 targeted recruitment events in priority police precincts, worked with the crisis management groups, and partnered with NYCHA so that applicants can make use of their digital vans. The online application closed last Friday, but we are continuing targeting recruitment to allow participants with barriers to employment the opportunity to apply. This year, all SYEP participants will receive at least 2 hours of financial literacy education as required by local law 98 of 2023. But I also want to add that the administration top line has always been financial literacy. DYCD also launched a financial empowerment peer mentoring pilot in which select work, learn, and grow participants will take CUNY courses on financial literacy and serve as peer mentors during SYEP. Work, Learn, and Grow, a school year extension of SYEP, is now serving over 7,000 youth. It is the largest class to date, with more than 1/3 of enrolled youth residing in or attending schools in the 6 priority precincts identified in the Mayor's Blueprint for Community Safety. Also, for the first time, our CMS providers, our crisis management service providers, had the opportunity to participate in Work, Learn, and Grow, with 19 CMS groups enrolling over 330 participants. 38 Work, Learn, and Grow participants are serving as youth ambassadors to students in temporary housing with a focus on migrant youth. In addition to our SYEP planning, we are actively preparing for another summer of wide-ranging enrichment programs for the city's Summer Rising program in partnership with New York City Public Schools. Applications for this summer open March 1st and will close on March 25th. And we expect to again serve 110,000 elementary and middle school students and connect them with fun, hands-on enrichment experiences to strengthen skills, develop interests, and cultivate curiosity. Some of the programming that will be offered includes drama, yoga, community service, visual arts, sports, and competitive games. We appreciate the opportunity to brief Chair Stevens and Joseph last week on this summer program. We appreciate your outreach and, again, your engagement and your partnership. Last year, we introduced Exploring Futures, a new feature of the program for middle school students to facilitate early career exploration aligned with their individual interests and passion. This program exposed students to a wide range of career paths, enabling them to navigate and explore fields that may have otherwise been unfamiliar to them. The program includes visits to CUNY campuses, career-connected field trips, and workplace tours. We look forward to another year of this exciting program. The Office of Neighborhood Safety, ONS, officially joined DYCD in fiscal year 24. This office included the Mayor's Action Plan for Neighborhood Safety, the Office to Prevent Gun Violence, Atlas, and Precision Employment Initiative, we call PEI. These programs are aligned with DYCD's mission and improve community and police relations, reduce crime, incarceration, and diminish contact with the justice system. Outreach includes hundreds of Staten Islanders in the wake of the youth violence on the borough North Shore, and CMS team helping to make Juve and the West Indian Day Parade in Brooklyn the safest in recent memory ONS plays a major role in carrying out a blueprint for community safety announced by Mayor Adams in July. Finally, we are pleased to announce a new program, the Neighborhood Youth Team Sports Program, which offers awards up to $50,000 for youth sports programming to nonprofit organizations. This opportunity for competitive youth sports programs, which is supported by a New York State funding source, is now open for application in Passport. Bids are due by April 12th of this year. We encourage community groups to apply for contracts that will begin July 1st. The new program is in addition to our Saturday Night Lights program, which serves young people at 136 sites citywide. Saturday Night Lights programs offer safe and engaging evening sports programs, including basketball, soccer, volleyball, dance, and martial arts. Again, I want to thank you, Chair Stevens, once again, and the committee members for the opportunity to discuss the preliminary budget. We are pleased to answer your questions. Thank you.
Well, it's still morning. Good morning. I'm happy to have you guys here today. We're going to dig right in because we have a lot of questions. And I'm going to start. DYCD's fiscal 2025 preliminary budget of $1.1 billion is $234.5 million, or 17% less than the fiscal 2024 adopted budget of $1.4 billion. Excluded from the fiscal 2025 preliminary budget is $151.7 million of council discretionary funding that is typically added at adoption. What is the remaining $8.23 million difference the results of? What programs or services are being reduced in fiscal 2025 as compared to 2024?
Good morning, Chair Stevens.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. Primarily, the key difference is discretionary funding. There are small changes to our after-school program. I think there's a reduction in Summer Rising and some of our other slots on our after-school portfolio that's representative of the reduction in funding.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the small changes to the after-school program, like what that actually entails?
There's been a slight reduction to slots due to underperformance in some programs, and so we just right-sized those portfolios to reflect the attendance and participation.
Do you have a list of those programs that's been right-sized with those reductions?
I think we can provide you with more detail after the hearing.
All right, thank you. Definitely will want to see those lists. What is the additional funding intercity transfer of $970,000 in fiscal 2024 and 2025 for the Advance and Earn program?
You said intercity?
Yeah, intercity, yeah.
Sure. DYC partners with ACS to provide additional support for our participants in that program.
Okay, so that's what that was for. The Young Men Initiative, YMI, has a reduction of $200,000 in the fiscal 2025 preliminary budget plan. What is the reason for this reduction?
A slight reduction to our one contract, 100 Met Black Men, and so that contract was reduced in the PEG plan.
And just thinking about it, such a small program, and you know, we had a hearing a couple of weeks ago and was talking about how we need to be looking to expand that and making sure it's open more. Why would we pick a program that probably is in one of the smaller buckets to kind of reduce when we should be actually ramping that up?
I understand your concern. I think that given the fiscal climate, the agency was trying to figure out how we can best maintain and maximize our core programming. And so this initiative is in partnership with City Hall and YMI, and so we identified this contract as a contract that can be reduced where not impacting our core services.
And I just want to add on that.
Sure.
Because I think one of the things we have to put in proper perspective is the fact that in a segment of time, DYCD, along with other city agencies, of course, had to undergo PEGs. And we're not excluded.
Some agencies have been excluded, which is part of the problem.
Well,
And you should be excluded.
I recall being on the call and the mayor saying all hands on deck. 183,000, as you mentioned, an influx of migrants asylum seekers in the last 2 years. That is a very much serious strain on any city and city's resources. And the mere fact, coupled with the fact that we have to balance the budget, which is based upon our local law, as you know. I don't have to tell you anything that you don't know. Pegs or service reductions. But this time, in what was happening in the previous pegs, it was some serious fiscal crisis that was happening in the city. So I just want to start on that preface alone, that DYCD is not excluded from reviewing and making sure that the city as a whole is fiscally sound, and all city agencies are required.
Again, I hear you and I understand. However, we know that that has not been the case, and all city agencies some agencies were excluded. One being NYPD, because, you know, they go over their overtime all the time and have no consequences. And so we find money in those agencies, so we need to find money for our young people. So that's always going to be my stance. And so I understand there are places we can't tighten up, but I'm never going to have it be acceptable for it to be for young people. So I get it. We do have to make reductions, and we got to tighten our belts, and we have to live in reality, but we also have to live in a reality that we can't always take the hit in agencies that are serving young people, because these are the agencies that typically have to take the hits and get the deeper cuts. We were already struggling before, and we can't continue to struggle with our young people. So I understand we are in tight times, but I'm still going to push, because a budget is our moral priority, and it always sets the tone for what we deem important. And to me, our young people should be our main priority. So I get it. We have tough times, but I'm going to push back each and every time, especially when other agencies aren't taking the cuts.
And we appreciate it, and that's why I started off in my opening statement saying that you've been a real champion in being able to advocate for young people and youth and families. I mean, that's a given. You and I have had offline conversations. We've had on the record conversation. Your effort to SYEP is on the record.
Absolutely.
So you're getting no argument here.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
We're on the same page. So I'm always going to push. And so, like I said, the Young Men's Initiative Program, we had a hearing, and they were part of our portfolio. It's a small portfolio. They've been doing really good work. And for a small program to get a cut, that's deeper than some of the bigger programs. And so that's why that's something that is a concern for me, especially when we have continuously seen increase, especially men and Black men and Latino men going into the juvenile justice system. So for me, we have to make sure we're investing where it makes sense. So I'm just going to go on to some more questions. The preliminary plan includes a reduction of $10.3 million in fiscal 2024 for the Preventative Employment Initiative Civilian Climate Corps program. The program's objective is to provide jobs to up to 3,000 individuals. How will this reduction reduce this goal? Why are those funds being eliminated?
You mentioned a number of savings, so can you just cite them?
I'm sorry. The preliminary plan includes a reduction of $10.3 million in fiscal 2024 for their Preventative Employment Initiative Civilian Climate Corps program. The program objective was to provide up to 3,000 jobs to individuals. How will this reduction reduce this goal, and will those funds and are those funds being eliminated?
So I'm not familiar with the position,
The PEI.
you're talking about PEI, position employment. So you mentioned a number of other initiatives. So I just want to make sure that we clarify that. And so the program that's being reduced is a Precision Employment Initiative, and that's due to accruals as a result of changes to the program design.
What were those program design changes?
I'm going to defer that to our Associate Commissioner, Daphne Montanez, where she can expand more on what the Precision Employment Initiative is doing in fiscal year 24.
And while you're coming up, I guess also just what boroughs are these programs offered in, and how is the agency publicizing these programs?
Thank you, Chair. So the Precision Employment Program was designed to target communities most affected by gun violence by providing job training, including certifications in construction, HVAC, low voltage electrical skills, as well as work readiness and wraparound services. DYCD, the program actually transitioned to DYCD at the start of the fiscal year, and since that time, we have been evaluating the program model, and the trainings as we look to the future of the program.
So how these reductions, is this going to change the goal of helping 3,000 individuals? And were these funds just like totally eliminated? Because I know you're saying you were evaluating the programs. Like, could you give us some more details about?
So it streamlined some of the training offerings provided. So because of those streamlining of
And could you be more
courses.
specific about when you say streamline, what does that mean exactly?
Sure. So we define the program length. We can define the certifications offered. There were more certifications that were offered. And so with the reduction of those training, that reduced the actual overall budget.
So when you say you streamlined, you kind of like folded it into some of the other things you were already doing currently with UICD because you already were offering some of the stuff. Is that?
Well, I just want to also clarify that when the program came over from the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, Mark J., one of the reasons why it came over is because it's one of the preventive initiatives to attract and to deal with young people who are justice involved. The reason why it's over at DYCD is because we provide programming support. And so what Daphne is talking about is the basis of being able to provide an infrastructure that the program did not have.
What boroughs are these programs offered in?
These programs are situated in Brooklyn and in the Bronx. However, they target communities that are most affected by gun violence citywide.
And I don't feel like this question was answered at all. So will you still be able to offer other 3,000 jobs that were initially thought of for this program?
So we're working with ONB to have those conversations on what the program is going to look like as we move forward. We are in full support of having a program that deals with justice-involved young people. Those conversations are actively happening with ONB.
So the 3,000 jobs isn't a target anymore.
So I think we need to be clear as 3,000 slots that can lead to potential employment opportunities. So we got to be clear on exactly.
Okay, so are you going to serve the 3,000 people? 'Cause I feel like it's semantics right now. So
well, I just want to be clear about
I'm being
the
clear
goals of the
too,
program.
and you're not giving me the answer. So
Well, we're still working with ONB to see exactly.
so no. So the answer is no. So let's just say no. Like I don't know why we gotta go around, and it's okay. Like it's okay. It's been transferred over. It's a new program. You're figuring it out. So no, you're not gonna serve 3,000. It's okay to say no sometimes. Like it's okay.
And I just want to add that we're still evaluating the program.
Great. And so it's still no.
So
Like, I don't know what we're doing.
we'll leave it there.
I'm not leaving it there. We're leaving it at no, you will not be serving the 3,000 people that I intended, and you're trying to figure that out. And so I will make sure we will come back with the question at a later date so we can figure out if you didn't hit the 3,000, what do we do to get there? And it's okay for it to be no. That's it.
And the program is still being evaluated.
Great. It can still be being evaluated, but you still ain't getting the 3,000. So I don't know why we're going down. I don't know why y'all always do that. Like, it's okay. Like, say no. During the previous oversight hearing for the Committee on Youth Services Aging and Contracts, Mox addressed the delay in contracting process, stating that there were a backlog of $4.2 billion that the nonprofit organizations were unable to access. What is DYCD's current contract backlog?
Good morning, Chair Stevens. DYC
Welcome
is a lot
back.
of work. Welcome back. DUSD values the nonprofit sector, and we have recognized that they are doing the work on the ground in the communities. And so we have done a lot of work over the last year to ensure there are no backlogs for our contracting, and we should have a very small amount in FY24.
Do you have the number, the amount, the
I
number?
don't believe at this time there's any backlog for FY24 as far as
No
the base
backlog?
contract.
All right, well, I'd love to hear that. So you should have led with that. We don't have no backlog. Y'all should be bragging if you don't have a backlog, right?
Yes.
That just, you should be saying it with your chest, like, we ain't got no backlog, we did it, like, what's happening today with y'all? It's okay. Celebrate your success.
I'm going to say something, and I know you're going to disagree because you disagreed the last year. But I also want to pay special attention to the fact that last year, with the 12-week sprint, we were able to work with our nonprofit entity and City Hall and OMB to release at least $4 billion, to the nonprofit sector. You're going to tell me, as you often have, that that's money that they've already had.
I love when y'all answer my questions for me.
But I can tell you it was a streamlined approach, and it was something that was long overdue, and it was something that the First Deputy Mayor and also the Mayor had recognized, and the level of investment that was needed in order to make sure nonprofits got paid on time.
Listen, it's not that I disagree. I just want to be clear. Like you remember said, you want to be clear. I want to be clear that we can't always celebrate when we are giving people the money they owe. Because if I owe you $100, you want your money, and you're not gonna say like, okay, it's a backlog. You're like, no, I want my money. So the nonprofits want their money. That's it. That's all I want. That's all I'm saying. But like I said, if you guys are saying that there's no backlog, I think that you should come in and make sure that's a celebration because that's an achievement, right? So since she says no backlog, I'm not gonna spend too much time on that then. So we're gonna go into some programs. Can you provide the committee with total enrollment in fiscal 2023 and current enrollment in fiscal 2024 for Compass, Sonic, Beacon? This is a lot, so y'all might wanna write it down, so it's pretty much all the programs. Compass, Sonic, Beacon, Cornerstones, Learn and Earn, Train and Earn, Adult Literacy, and give a breakdown by borough. It's a lot, I know. And we could take it one by one.
Yeah, so you want to know the enrollment by program area?
Yep.
Okay, so I can give you enrollment by program area. I cannot give it to you by borough.
So after this, if you guys could send that over, that'll be very helpful.
Okay, and so this is year to date, and again, things always point in time, so things may change in flux. And so I'm going to start with Compass in FY25. Our current enrollment is around 94,000, 94,069. For Beacons, it's 110,400.
You said Beacons, 110?
Yes. For 269.
You said 19?
Yes. RHY, I'm sorry, I'm going to clarify my numbers again. I gave you FY25, I'm going to give you FY24.
Okay.
Apologies. So for Compass, it is 96,714.
96.
For Beacons, it is 116,178. For Cornerstone, it is 19,269. RHY, 813. Is there any other program area that you're asking?
Train and Earn?
Train and Earn.
And Learn and Earn, Adult Literacy?
Okay, Train and Earn is 1372. Learn and Earn, 1056. Adult Literacy, 16442.
Okay, thank you, and you can get back to with the borough breakdown at a later date, please. What is the current budget for each of those programs at baseline? That is in this baseline. It is
So I'm going to reference FY25's budget. Okay, and so for Compass, it is 385. Beacon, 61.3. Cornerstone, 59.2. RHY, 50.7. Train and Earn, 17.4. Learn and Earn, 3.5. And I believe the remaining one that you asked about was adult literacy, which was 13.4.
Is the agency eliminating the Compass Explorers program? And if so, why? Especially since though there has been basically participation, there has been significant participation in those programs.
So DYCD, again, valued our core programming, and we strongly believe that Compass Explore does phenomenal work in communities, and so we are not minimizing that, but we wanted to ensure that key comprehensive services will continue, and so we are in ongoing conversations with OMB. Again, this is a preliminary budget, and so, but at this time, the Compass Explore program is not funded in FY25.
I have real issues with that. I mean, and listen, I get it. We have cards that's dealt, but I think, especially even when we're looking at the budget, we also have to be looking at the correlation of what's also happening in the city, right? I have the fortune of sitting on the Public Safety Committee, and they talked about how there's such an increase in crime with youth, and specifically this age. And so when I'm seeing that a program that at the same time that are targeting that same age group, and then crime is rising for that age group, and then even with Summer Rising, we're eliminating Fridays, and we already know that SYP, that they're only gonna pay $750. It's like, do we not see the correlation? And so how are we not investing in a group of young people who at the same time the numbers in our juvenile justice systems are like rising. So I'm really, really concerned about that. And I understand it is tough times and we have to make sacrifices, but I think when we're looking like holistically, how does this work? And this is why I'm happy that ACS is now under my preview, because I get to see the full circle of like, oh, wait a minute, if we are over here with these programs and this is not helping them, like they're gonna end up here. And so my job now is to make sure that we are stopping that connection. And if we are eliminating programs, especially for our middle school kids, then that is going to continue. And one of the reasons why we champion middle school programs, because for years there was no programs for them, and now I'm seeing it being rolled back real slow, and I'm uncomfortable. And I'm not saying it's y'all fault, but what I'm saying is we got to figure it out. And this is going to be something that I'm going to keep yelling about, because I'm not okay with this.
Well, let's put a pin in that for a minute, right? Because if DYCD's budget is 77.7% in city tax levy money, 77.7%, and we have to go through service cuts just like any other city agency.
Stop saying like any other city agencies,
No,
because I told you all city
let's
agencies aren't.
Let's be clear. Those are painful decisions that have to be met based upon the fiscal condition of the city. So if we have to go through service cuts, it's going to affect programming, period.
Great, but if we're not investing in the front end of our young people, we're going to invest in them in the back end. And if we prevent them from going to the juvenile justice system, it actually saves the city money. So if you want to talk about savings, the programs are actually going to save the city money. So if we want to think about long-term and savings, that's where we need to start. And so yes, do we need to tighten up? Do we need to go into the reserves and figure it out? But I'm telling you now, if we're not investing in our young people, we're going to spend so much more money on them while they're in the juvenile justice system. And once they're there, they're going to end up in rackers. Like, it's a continuous cycle. So we cannot say that like, oh, we're in a fiscal crisis. Yes, but we're going to be in a worse crisis in 10 years. So I hear you, and we're on the same page, but I'm talking about what it looks like of like making sure that we're not spending way more money on the justice system.
And you're preaching to the converted.
Great.
Okay, but I do want to add this, that and I repeat what the mayor had actually said. Let's talk about what programs to cut. I'll be glad to sit down with you, go through the list of programs, and say, okay, tell me exactly where there should be cuts. Because any cut is going to be detrimental.
You know I can give you some cuts. So don't tell me to sit down with you, because you know I'll sit down with you, because there's some programs we could cut, and we could start. You want to start there? Because I could start the programs that we could cut.
So let's do it.
We could start, because you know Saturday Night Lights should be on the chopping block. So don't go there. So we could start with that. We could also start with some other programs. We could also start with Summer Rising and how the $80 million is going to DOE. We could actually put it into providers and have a much more robust summer camp. So you know I can go down the list.
Saturday Night Lights.
I could go down the list.
Is a safety.
Again, if you actually rolled it into the programs that you guys are already doing, it would actually save the city more money. So we could do this, but like, you know I know these programs.
You do know.
And so I can tell you there is places we can cut and we could find savings instead of eliminating programs that is going to continuously put our kids in juvenile justice systems. So I want to be clear, we're on the same page around like we don't want kids to end up there, but I don't think we're on the same page of how to get there. And so there is places we can find savings. There are things that we can look at to make sure that we can maintain programs at this time and figure it out, but we're not. We are literally gutting a program that I believe that is going to, if one kid ends up in jail or ends up shot this summer or ends up in these things, it's one too many. So that's where I'm at. And so I get it. There are places we can save, but eliminating programs at this time when these census are rising is not okay with me. And so we're on the same page. I just don't believe that this should be cut. That's all I'm saying.
I hear you.
What type of evaluation takes place when determining whether eliminating a program other than savings?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
What type of evaluation takes place when determining whether a program should be eliminated?
So I thought we just had this little.
No, you
back and
didn't. You
forth.
said it was for No, you said it was for savings. So what other than savings, how did you determine that a program should be eliminated? What else other than because from my knowledge is these programs are actually not actually well attended. They didn't have any other things. So other than savings, why was this program eliminated, or any program? Because I don't just want to talk about this. I want to talk about how do we prevent this. So what processes is in place that you put in to ensure that if you're eliminating a program, what are you looking at other than savings?
We look at the impact across
And how do you do
our
that?
program's area to determine whether or not we can still provide the critical services.
But how do you look at impact? What does that mean? Give me a breakdown of if you're saying you're looking at impact, what is the impact? What does that look like? I need more details because impact that can mean a lot of different things.
It can, but it still doesn't answer the question. The question is, based upon the fact that we are heavy in tax levy money, how do we decide based upon critical data that we have?
So what is the data?
Looking at critical impacts on critical services and making sure that
Commissioner,
we can still
I'm asking a specific
provide
question.
a
What
robust
is the impact
program.
you're looking at? I understand, other than savings, because I said that, other than savings, what else did you take into consideration? That is what I'm asking. So yes, I know that you had to have tough times. Other than impact, how did you determine that this program should be eliminated?
So, Chair Stevens, we look at who the persons are being served. We look at program performance. We look at utilization in the area. We look at key services. There are key core services that we provide. Again, we're trying to alleviate poverty, and so we want to make sure that our key marquee programs, after school, workforce programs, SYEP, our cornerstone programs, our programs on NYCHA, our ONS programs, those are key programs in our agency. We want to make sure that we keep them whole as possible, especially if they have comprehensive services. We look at how programs are performing again, like I mentioned. A lot of our program managers go out and do site visits, and then we ensure to see how the program's performing. If they're underperforming, maybe that program can be up for a PEG if it comes up. And again, utilization. So there's a whole host of things. Again, we don't want to reduce programs. It is not our goal. It is not our intent. But again, if there's a tough fiscal climate and things are hard for us to do, we kind of figure out where can we make the best decision. But ultimately, it's never our goal to ever reduce services. We want to keep programs whole as possible. And again, most of our plan, we're trying to either maximize revenue or maximize accruals in our programs, because it's our goal to not cut slots or services. Because again, we recognize
Of areas that have underspending in any of the other programs?
Well, over the last couple of years, we've done a number of accrual pegs, and so we are continuing to do that. And so, as reflected in the peg, there are some accrual pegs in some of our other areas, and then we did that this year.
I'm going to go into Sonic. What are the current number of seats in the Sonic program, and how many seats are being reduced?
The Sonic program, I do not have that in front of me as far as the number of slots for this upcoming summer, but I know that we reduced a little over 3,000.
Well, we can give you that
So we can
information
give you
offline.
that, yes.
Okay. Will there be participant rate of increase for Sonic and Compass programs? What is the current rate, and what could be the potential new rate?
Are you talking about the rate of participation?
Yeah.
Okay, so are you referring to the school year program or the summer program?
We can break it down between the both, yeah. I'm sorry, I should have specified.
So I believe for the school year program, the middle school program, the target is 75% on rate of participation, and for elementary programs, it's 80%. There is not a specific target for a rate of participation for summer programming. But I can give you that.
Okay. Do you feel that there's adequate space for Beacon programs? And if not, what changes are being made to implement more space?
Well, Beacon programs are located in school buildings, and so we believe there's enough space for Beacon programs, but if there's any issues at a particular site, we will work with them and work with DOE to see how we can best make sure that we can serve participants.
The preliminary budget includes an additional $4 million for Cornerstone mill rate increase. Why? Could you talk a little bit more about what those additional funds would be used for, and how did this come about? Because I know there's been a lot of talk about meals on the DOE side, and so I want to have a moment of time to talk about it on our side.
$4 million is supplemental funding to allow cover the cost of the increased rate for the reimbursement for meals. And so we had other funding that came in that's not city tax levy, and so the administration and their commitment to ensuring that all participants are fed provided additional funding to make sure that we are whole on that budget, on that contract.
How many young people are being served through this program currently?
I don't
think you
have
said-
that
I think you said-
information in front of me, but I can get that for you.
So the funding increase for fiscal '24, will the mills rate increase require funding in the overlapping years? Because it was only for fiscal 2024, so what are we going to do
I think
moving
this is the
forward?
first year of the contract, and so we're looking at utilization, and so we just wanted to make sure that we had enough funding to cover this year, but we're in ongoing conversations with OMB to ensure that this is funded in the out years, and we're confident that if a participant needs food and they're in our program, that they will get the food that they need.
I'm going to ask a couple more questions, and I'll hand it over to my colleagues. Advanced and Earn, how many providers are in the Advanced Earn program?
The Advance and Earn program, I don't have it right in front of me as far as the number of providers that we have. But we can give you that after. I'm going to defer to our Associate Commissioner, Daphne Montanez, who can give you that information readily.
There are 5 providers within the Advance and Earn program, and we have 7 programs.
7 programs. Which borough and district has the highest attendance rate for the program?
I'll have to get those numbers by borough for you.
Okay. And how many adults are currently in the Advance and Earn program?
Currently, for fiscal year '24, we are enrolled at 1,077
Bless you.
young people.
Thank you. I'm going to ask a couple more questions. I'll hand it over. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that. So the preliminary plan includes fiscal 2025 budget headcount of 13 positions for the Office of Neighborhood Safety. Is the budget headcount significant to meet the needs of the program? And what is the current headcount for these programs?
So with the Office of Neighborhood Safety, we're still transitioning that program over into DYCD. The conversation and the MOU that we were able to sign was in February of last year. And July is when the programs and the contract also transitioned as well, along with the staff. So we're still in the transition year with the staffing and the programs for the Office of Neighborhood Safety.
So you're not sure if that is significant, and in the last year you haven't been able to say yay or no, you need more, or you're still?
We're still evaluating, and we're in conversations with ONB to make sure that the program has the resources that it needs.
This program was transferred from MOX and adopted last year. Were there any major contract issues with the organizations who had not received funding? What improvements have been made to address the contract problems that the program occurred?
So again, this is a transitional year, and so DYC did a lot of work to ensure that we try to ensure cash flow to these providers. And so for fiscal year '25, as part of the transition year, we are moving to our CMS portfolio to have direct contracts so that they will be able to have a much more intentional and direct relationship with DYCD, and that way we can provide much more support for fiscal management.
Have any providers experienced any delays in receiving funding? Because I know that was a huge issue when it was on the other side, and I know that was one of the many reasons why it was transferred over. So can you talk a little bit about what the transition has looked like, and have we seen less delays?
So what we can honestly tell you about the transition is that most of the organizations in CMS require technical assistance and capacity building to be able to build out their front office.
And can you talk about the technical assistance that you guys are actually providing to those programs?
Well, basically, improvement in their governance policies. We're talking about improvement in their front office processing. We're talking about improvements in being able to submit invoices in a timely way and Passport. Those are some of the system building that is required as we made an assessment of the ONS. And we're still, again, transitioning and helping those organizations, which are vital public safety.
I know, but I know y'all doing so much more, so talk about it. Like, y'all doing I know the work that y'all doing, so talk about the stuff that you guys have been doing with them to, like, help build out their capacity.
So Chair Stevens, DYSD is, we're a contracting agency. We do a lot of work with program management, and so DYSD has been a lot more intentional work regarding, again, he mentioned TA, organizational development, work around ensuring that the fiscal team is much more robust. I think there's a lot more work that's been going, looking at program design and program model to see what's effective, what is not, and again, we're in a transitional year, and so this is a year to just kind of do an assessment of the program and figure out what is the best approach to do moving forward to make sure that we're meeting the goals of the program area.
No, I agree, and I know y'all been doing that, and I'm giving y'all a moment to brag about the stuff y'all been doing.
I understand.
Well, it's not bragging. It's
No, it is bragging, and it's, again, brag about the stuff you've been doing. Like, you've been doing some stuff, and I know what you guys have been
So
doing.
I'm gonna allow, Associate Commissioner Dara Rattray to.
But before Darryl gets on.
Okay.
I'm like giving y'all alley-oop.
So I appreciate the alley-oop. We're going to make sure we slam dunk it once you give us the alley-oop. But also, we want to also understand that in terms of the infrastructure, for us, we were able to right-size it by giving these organizations advances. And these advances help them to be able to continue programming in terms of their continuity of service. And that was one of the major things that these organizations needed. They needed advancement, they needed technical assistance, and they needed help in invoicing and budgeting. That was very key. Dal, you want to add to that?
Good morning, Chair Stevens. So in addition to what the Commissioner and following his vision, we made sure that as we entered FY24, that every CMS provider had advances on their contract. So they had cash flow to go into the summer, which was really important in their planning, in their, we also did the Labor Day weekend, which was important. So again, having cash flow during the hot months of the summer where, unfortunately, at times, historically, crime could be up. We made sure that Labor Day weekend was one of the safest in New York City's history, and that our CMS providers were supported. In addition to that, we are also connecting them to our ecosystem. So part of the goal was, how do we take the CMS provider who's used to working within a catchment, but may not have access to all of the other opportunities and resources within that catchment, whether it be other nonprofits, community centers, what are they connecting these young adults that they're coming into engagement with? What are they connecting them to? What are they connecting their families to? We've been running a campaign ensuring that we are having those meet and greets on the ground. Chair Stevens, I know you've been to some, where we are connecting them to those resources and opportunities, whether it be through co-location. Hey, here's now the opportunity for you to utilize some of that space. Bring your services into that community center. Provide an activity within the center that also engages young adults from that either nurture development or neighborhood. So we've been intentional about making those connections. And again, to what the commissioner is saying and what I want to say Deputy Commissioner Naveed, I just upgraded you, I think.
All right, congratulations. Hope she get a pay increase too.
And to what Naveed is saying, we've been also working with them on the capacity building, their internal supports, the supports for organizations, and more importantly for me, we're bringing them onto direct contracts with DYCD so we could be more intentional about supporting them.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that it's been a great effort around like really trying to get the collaboration to go on around the different programs in the DYCD portfolio, which makes sense. Like I was at one of them and they had homeless runaway youth programs there and all the things. And so those things to me are really important. But even thinking about like within DYCD, can you talk about, and now especially because I'm also the chair, what the cross-agency collaboration looks like as well? And how can we talk about that? Because I know one of the things that I've been really pushing for is talking about like, you know, ACS has a lot of programs that they're working on and, you know, they refer to you guys and I know you guys refer to them. And so could you talk about what agency collaboration looks like as well? Because I think that, especially with the CMS providers, it is important for them to be in like those spaces. And when we're talking about the juvenile justice system, and even when they're coming home, could we talk about what that full circle looks like as well, and how we can use the CMS providers to help with some of that work, and especially around recidivism?
No, yeah. So let me start, and Darryl, you can definitely jump in. One of the things that the mayor was very, very intentional about was the fact that city agencies, commissioners, and line staff and senior staff work collaboratively together with other city agents to make sure we share resources. We have a very good relationship with ACS, being able to meet with them on a regular basis, along with public schools, because I think with the CMS, we have to be able to be invested in public schools. So we're literally in public schools working with the chancellor and his team. We have direct communication and relationship with Department of Social Services to be able to provide those benefits and those supports, victim services as well. So and Maya, I add you also with the Office of Emergency Management as well, looking at exactly responses and things of that nature. We also have a good relationship with NYCHA in terms of CMS, because when we look at the mayor's action plan, we have to look at the 30 precincts, NYCHA areas, excuse me, NYCHA areas, yes, that has the highest level of violence. So it's a multi-agency approach to the crisis management system and all of the levels of investments that we have there.
No. How many staff currently work on contract evaluation for the ONS programs?
1, 2. So we currently...
two?
No, 1,
Just
2.
you?
I was testing the mic.
Oh, I thought
I'm
you said
from the
just you.
Bronx. This is how I was testing the mic. So we currently have 18 staff working in the ONS program.
18? Do you think that's significant to evaluate the significant portfolio that just was like transferred over?
I think we're still going through a transition year, and we're evaluating those programs as we speak, in addition to having those conversations with OMB.
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 I was not saying it in a good way, because you know how. I'm gonna pause here. Y'all know I got more questions, but I like to leave some space for my colleagues. But I would like to also acknowledge Councilmember Williams and Councilmember Brewer also joined us, and of course, Councilmember Williams is the first one to have questions. So, she didn't. Oh yeah, you were there. I'm sorry. Hey girl, how you doing? But I'm gonna turn it over to Chair Joseph, followed by Chair Lee. Oh, Councilmember, I'm the chair today, I'm sorry.
We're the co-chairs today.
You are not the co-chair. Just sit down.
But we love our kids because I'm the education chair, so our work is entwined, so I love that. And that's why we fight so hard for young people. Good morning.
Morning.
I have a few questions around.
It was Williams.
Oh, was Councilmember Williams?
Yes, I don't.
My bad. Go ahead.
He skipped you. She is 3 on the list. You're not here. Councilmember Lee, it's you. Everybody's so polite here today.
You may go.
Oh, because it's a panel full of
Go,
women.
I'll go after you. Go. No, Chair Joseph, go. I'll go after you.
I like the way they fight over. You see how we get along, the sisters over here? Take some notes, y'all. I wanted to talk around the DYCD literacy RFP included 11.9 for adult literacy education, 3.6 for adult basic education, high school equivalency, and 8.3 for basic education in native language, English as a new language. However, the mayor's preliminary budget for FY25 includes $21.7 million for DYCD adult literacy. This is a difference of nearly $10 million. What are those additional funds going towards?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, how are you? So essentially this is a technical adjustment. The funds are not in the appropriate area in the budget, and so we will be making an adjustment to move it, but those funds are accounted for and they support our Advanced and Earn program in YMI.
Quick question, what was the rationale in determining the change in the RFP though?
Can you elaborate on what you're referencing when you say change?
You changed the RFP, how many new students would this new RFP would serve?
So we do not anticipate any loss in slots with the new RFP that's being released.
Okay. The RFP provides per student reimbursement rate?
Correct. Per participant rate.
Okay, about 1,300, or is much, okay, much lower than the 27 requested by the council and the New York City Coalition for Adult Literacy. Do you feel per student rate, reimbursement rate is sufficient?
We believe it's sufficient based on the funding that we have in our budget, yes.
I know that was coming. Was there any consideration made for the 2,700 rate?
I think we recognize the challenges, and we looked at the services that we're offering and the cost of, and we believe that the 1,300 is adequate to support what we are reflecting in the RFP.
This agency likes to save money. So by limiting the adult literacy program to only 41 neighborhoods, though, the RFP limits which program can apply as only program located within the 41 designated NTA will be eligible. I know that was one of the things we got from the providers, that the RFP was located in certain areas that normally are not.
So, Council Member, help me understand this.
Help you understand? You're here to tell me.
Please help me understand this. Because I'm still trying to wrap my head around the process that we're all familiar with, right?
Right.
So we know that there's a concept paper that gets issued. We know that in that concept paper, there's an exchange with all of the stakeholders based upon exactly what we feel and what the stakeholders feel should be a robust program.
Mm-hmm.
Based upon the concept paper, that's where we have that equal exchange. So we also are aware that DYCD is a anti-poverty agency, and that we're focusing on participants who are in neighborhoods who are at the highest level of poverty.
Right.
So it's interesting to me that when the concept paper came out, we did have engagement from our stakeholders, and we did have engagement from certain members of the council. But the way that the RFP has landed deals specifically with our investment in order to address inequities.
Gotcha.
So I'm trying to understand, why is it that there are issues with organizations or advocates saying that they've been excluded? No one is excluded from the RFP.
Maybe they did not know or they missed it. So that's why we're asking this question, because we did get a lot of calls as to why certain groups felt excluded. So now you're clarifying it, and that's what we're doing. I love that.
Well, everybody could apply, but I think some of the issue is around not just being able to apply, but not being considered because they're not in the right catchment areas. And so there is some confusion around that. So if you can clear that piece up, because I think that that's where some of the confusion around adult literacy is that yes, everyone is open to apply, but providers feel like they will have less of a chance if they're not in one of the NFTs. So if you can clarify what that is then, because that's where a lot of the providers are having pushback.
Okay. Dana?
Dana can tell me, our agency chief contracting officer will respond to that question.
Good morning, Chair. So you're right, everyone can apply to the RFP, but as the Commissioner said, our priority is to ensure investments are going to the most needed neighborhoods. So at this time, we can't predict who's going to apply to the competition, how the scores are going to happen, right? But they can apply, and depending on how the awards come and their scores, DYCD will make the awards on the best interest of the city, ensuring that we are taking those 41 neighborhoods into consideration.
Is there a list of those 41 neighborhoods?
It's in the RFP, yes.
Okay, I'll look it over.
We can give it to you.
I know you would. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
This was not a part of, hi, everyone. This is not a part of my questions, but an issue that I always have with RFPs and in working in city agencies is, we all know, like when you craft an RFP, you can intentionally craft an RFP to ensure that there are opportunities across the spectrum, or you can curtail an RFP that only allows either for certain providers to actually be awarded the contract. And so, it's always interesting to me, and I know you guys put out these concept papers across different agencies, but to me, it's always focused on whatever the intention is within the agency that isn't always reflective of community need and equity amongst the different providers. So I don't know if you have any further information on how, I guess, moving forward in the future, how you could curtail the criteria and the scoring of these RFPs to increase opportunities across the spectrum for providers, because that's the problem. Because it's a little disingenuous to say, like, oh, everybody can apply. Yeah, of course, we know it's a public RFP, but if you don't meet the criteria to actually even be in the running for it, why would you waste your time to apply for said RFP? And there's been a ton of RFPs, not just with DYCD, but other agencies that disproportionately affect certain nonprofit organizations. And if you look across the board, the nonprofits that are actually being contracted these awards kind of fit the same mold. And so, I just wanted to know within, how you guys craft the criteria of the RFPs. Are there any considerations around equity and opportunity across multiple providers, and not just, again, curtailing the RFP to fit, what your intention is? Like, RFPs can be biased. And I think we don't talk about that because we hide behind the RFP because it seems like a democratic process, but the RFP itself can be biased. So just wondering if you have any feedback on that.
Let me see how I can explain this to you, because it's very, very important that I put forth this clear message that we are guided by procurement rules, and we are guided by a robust system of engagement based upon community and community needs. Some of the RFPs that we're talking about haven't been procured in 9, 10, 12 years. They are old program models that we're looking to be able to right size. This is why it's critical that we have an engagement with all the stakeholders, both small, large, mid-sized organizations. We have engagement with the council. We have engagement with stakeholders in the community through our concept papers. And those engagements and those conversations actually wind up crafting what the RFP looks like and what communities are served. We're also doing a very, very robust job in bringing those small organizations, those BIPOC organizations, into a competitive situation where we're providing capacity building and we're meeting with them in real ways to make sure that they are strengthened enough to be competitive in this space.
Okay, I feel that. And, I've worked with very stringent procurement processes for a bi-state agency, and still I know in working with procurement offices that you still can curtail RFPs that do follow procurement procedures to maximize opportunities across the spectrum. So I hear you. I just think oftentimes, if the agency or whomever is thinking that they have the ideal opinion about what it should be, you check those boxes, but after you've checked those boxes, the RFP still sometimes reflects a dynamic that isn't necessarily equitable for agencies or organizations across the spectrum, but I'll move on. So back to ONS. So the budget cut close to about $90 million. Can you provide more details on what exactly will be impacted? I think there is some discrepancies around what specific services will be impacted from the budget cut.
So hi, Councilmember Williams. Can you elaborate on what you're referencing regarding a $90 million reduction?
I think I just saw it.
Because to our knowledge,
It's not? Okay.
Yeah, so there was a reduction to the Precision Employment Initiative that was referenced, and that was a one-year reduction for this current fiscal year. And we have not taken any other substantial reductions to the program. I think that, so I just want to be clear about what you referenced,
Right.
$90 million.
So the FY24 adopted budget for ONS was, I guess, roughly $216 million. The prelim plan has it at roughly $194 million. FY25 is $125 million, so it's a difference of about $90 million for ONS specifically.
So what I can do is I can provide a walkthrough for you after the hearing.
Yeah, that would be good because $90 million feels like a lot of money to be cut from a particular program. And so just wanted to have more details around what will be impacted by way of the $90 million.
So we are committed to not doing any reduction to this portfolio. Again, DYSD understands the importance of this portfolio and the work that they do in this community, and so we're in ongoing conversations with OMB to ensure that funding continues next year, but I'm not familiar with the $90 million reduction, so we can follow up with you offline.
Okay, still on ONS, what is your relationship with the czar that was appointed about 2 years ago? There was like a czar of gun violence that the mayor announced, so just wanted to understand how you're working with the czar.
So we have a very good relationship with A.T. Mitchell, who is the czar for the gun violence task force. We meet on a regular basis. I have weekly meetings with A.T. Mitchell.
And what do you guys discuss?
We discuss programming. We discuss investment in the CMS. We discuss training for CMS. We discuss a lot of technical assistance that's needed to grow out CMS. So it can be in a range of topics. We also meet with a core group of some of the CMS providers every 3 weeks on a Saturday to make sure that we're hearing from them as well on how do we grow, how do we provide resources, how we continue services as well.
Councilmember, we'll do a second round if that's
Yep,
okay.
all right, thanks.
Have you come back. Could we, Councilmember Lee, and then followed by Councilmember Brewer, and then Minna.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm over here. Just wanted to ask a couple questions also about the adult literacy RFP, because I used to run DYCD funded, adult literacy programs at my former nonprofit for many, many years. And this is going back to like Mike O days, who then moved on to become director of MOX and all of that. So very much familiar with all the procurement contracting processes, and just wanted to dig in a little deeper for the record about how what criteria were you guys using in terms of creating more equity across the city for these RFPs? Because I know that in my communities, especially a lot of the like the languages that we serve in our communities are more niche, and it may not necessarily fit into the communities that we serve, may not fit into those zip codes that are outlined. And so just wondering how you're going to accommodate for that, because going back to Councilmember Williams' point, if I'm a nonprofit executive and I see that these are the requirements and the criteria, I may not have capacity to have staff apply for these grants that we may not get awarded for. And I brought up the same point actually to Commissioner Vassan yesterday about the clubhouse RFP, because in trying to recreate the landscape of the clubhouses, they set the minimum number of attendance, daily average attendance, higher to 300 when the national average is only 100. And so you have to, and so I know that the smaller clubhouses, many of them actually did not apply because of that requirement. And so in changing the RFP, I think we also need to recognize that there are certain groups that will be left out. And I just want to know what the intention was there, and also what the outreach was to the current and former providers for adult literacy, and how that conversation happened and how that was factored in.
So we can talk to you about the engagement that actually happened on multiple levels. We can talk to you about the methodology, as I had indicated before, that we are an anti-poverty agency. We rest solely on guidance from Executive Order 45 in terms of equity that all city agencies are required to adhere to.
But I just also want to point out, I'm sorry not to interrupt, but I also want to point out that in some communities, that poverty is very hidden. So it may not be reflected in the data that you have. And that's my point, is that especially a lot of these families in the Asian community, for example, they are multi-generational, living in the same home. So that poverty is not showing up in the same way. So I just wanted to put that on the record as well.
Oh, no, I appreciate that. And what we did is we landed on the census report, ACS to be able to, and NTA to be able to guide us in crafting exactly what the RFP is actually going to speak to. But I'll let Mike Bobbitt, our Deputy Commissioner, also talk about the engagement part as well.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Councilmember Lee, for the question. As the Commissioner correctly references, we did rely on the most recent American Community Survey data and neighborhood tabulation areas to try to inform program citing where it's likely that there are persons in need. But under the program design, participants can hail from anywhere in New York City, so no one is precluded from participating or presenting for services if they need services. Poverty was the main criterion used, and it's part of the methodology that DYCD is using going forward, as the Commissioner referenced, having an equity approach and trying to have a poverty alleviation approach. For the literacy RFP, 70% was based on the highest poverty rates, 30% was based on specific literacy-related indicators. So for adult literacy, it's the number of English language learners in New York City public schools. For the AB and HSE programs, the number of adults over the age of 25 without a high school diploma. And for ESOL and BENL, it's the number of individuals over 5 years with limited English proficiency. So given the amount of resources available, we did try to target and inform program site decisions with those criteria in mind. But again, as I said, participants are not excluded from being served anywhere in New York City.
And Mike, could you also speak to the investments that we have in other program areas like the HERC?
Sure. Well, one other thing I meant to mention earlier, because you had asked about what informs, and also in support of the Commissioner was saying, there's extensive stakeholder engagement that is done. That includes current DYCD-funded providers and other providers in the space. We also made a point for the concept paper and the RFP of talking to folks who may have given back contracts over time. How can we right size, look at staffing models and program models so that it would be less likely in the future that providers would want to give back a contract, and look at trends both within New York City as well as outside New York City, and talk to advocates and others in the space who are informed. I'm sorry.
And the HERCs.
Oh, yeah. There are also other current investments outside of this prospective RFP. As the Commissioner mentions, we're providing ESOL at 6 of the humanitarian emergency relief centers. So that's a different, serving a different need through a different methodology.
Yeah, I have a HERC in my district, so. Okay, and then just really quickly, out of the 41 NTAs, how many, did it decrease or increase from the previous round of RFPs? And then also, if a group, if an area is showing high percentages of LEP, but not the poverty, then how does that get factored in? And then I'll save my second round of mental health questions for later. Sorry.
I think that's a level of detail we want to have a sidebar conversation with you after the hearing about, but we can unpack it for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to Councilmember Brewer and then Mena. And I would like to acknowledge Councilmember Aviles, who's also joined us.
Thank you. Just also on the adult literacy, I mean, I thought that NYCHA would also be, because many of us have huge numbers of NYCHA, will not be included in your census because the other neighborhoods around it will outlie the NYCHA numbers. Do you take that into consideration when you're doing the RFPs, NYCHA?
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to get back to you then on council.
Okay, I've been asking this question for about 40 years, so it would be great to get an answer. Number two, on the adult literacy, the wait list, is that something that you look at? Because obviously I have about 7 hotels, everybody wants adult literacy, everybody wants to learn English. Is that wait list, nobody can get an appointment. Is that wait list taken into consideration when you're doing the RFP? Or do you have wait list information?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Brewer. I'm not as familiar as perhaps I ought to be about the wait list you're referencing. Could you say a bit more about it?
Sure. I'm just saying, I would assume that many of the programs that you fund, particularly today, they've always had, but they have even more wait lists for people who want to get in and there's no room. So that's what I'm saying. Is there any information along those lines? Because I have to say, as others here feel, the adult literacy at all levels, whatever program you're talking about, from libraries to DYCD, nobody can get an appointment. So because understandably, good programs and great need. So I'm just wondering, do you keep track of the wait list?
Thank you, Council Member. Yes, one of the things that we appreciate about the council's support also making additional slots available. And so with the one-shot funding that's been available for the past several years, it has been our practice to poll the providers and to find out what their additional capacity is beyond what they procured initially under their RFP. So that's a practice that we've had in place for the past several years, certainly.
So at another time, if you could let us know what that wait list is, we'd appreciate it.
Sure.
Number two, NYCHA. So when I go to Rikers, not everyone, many of the detainees know me. Hi, Gail. Hi, Gail. Hi, Gail. Why? Because I am a huge supporter of NYCHA and the residents, as you are. But too many of them are at Rikers, too many of them. So my question is, despite the fact that you mentioned in your testimony and in responses that you're working with NYCHA, I would love to see a lot more of your programs. First of all, NYCHA is NYCHA, and they don't have community centers open enough hours. I've put more money into hours in my neighborhood. I do know the whole borough of Manhattan. I don't know anything about other boroughs, but I know about Manhattan. And I know that many of the community centers are not open long enough hours, that there aren't enough programs. And I'm just wondering, as you have and the mayor has said correctly, doesn't want silo agencies, but somebody has to say that NYCHA is a priority and we're going to do all the programs that the chair is talking about plus in those NYCHA developments. They're just not there. So I'm wondering, what do you do to focus on NYCHA?
And Deputy Commissioner Susie Haskell will talk about NYCHA, but NYCHA is a real partner in the DYCD space. As you know, Council Member, we do run programs in NYCHA.
I know.
A significant amount of programs through our provider network, but specifically, as Deputy Commissioner Haskell will mention.
I think you raise a great point about additional hours, and our investment in DYCD in NYCHA community centers has continued to grow, started with 25 cornerstones to 45. We're now at 99 cornerstone centers, about to be 100.
What are the ages of Cornerstone, the ages that you can address at Cornerstone?
K through adults, all ages, different periods of the day, focusing on different ages, childcare a priority in the 3 to 6. We also have been expanding hours, not just the locations of the NYCHA community centers, but in the summer, programs are running 7 days a week until 11 p.m.
Yeah, but we need winter and summer. So at some point, could you give us a breakdown as to what you understand, what NYCHA developments you're in, and the hours? Because it's my understanding, at least in Manhattan, it's not as comprehensive as what you're suggesting, and that we do need a lot more programs at NYCHA. And unfortunately, DYCD is the place to go to get these programs.
Yes, we can give you the complete list and the comprehensive hours.
Okay. And then just finally, I also want to just mention as an example on the adult literacy, Riverside Language would be an incredibly good program that is not in one of the 41 neighborhoods, but I assume that they could apply and they may or may not get selected. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
They can apply.
And then the financial literacy that you do, and generally, does it get evaluated for the SYEP? And just generally, how do you do evaluation of your programs? Is it done internally? Is it done externally? And what's the cost?
So, hi, Councilmember Brewer. I don't have the cost necessarily in front regarding the evaluation, but there are multiple evaluation modalities that we take, whether it be internal or external. We have external vendors who also conduct evaluations, and we have our internal team who do evaluations via site visits.
All right. At some point, could you get us the outside, because that might be easier, cost of the outside evaluation vendors and what they evaluate? Right.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I just have a quick question. Deputy Commissioner Haskell, you just said that there are 90 cornerstones, soon to be 199? What? Yeah, no, I can't hear.
99 now.
Oh, it's 99 and it's about to be 100?
Yeah.
So you're getting one new one? What is it? What's the new one? Where is that?
Oh, Gowanus, yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, I just want to know. Councilmember Minna, thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Chair. So in your prelim budget, you have funding for just one new need. Obviously, we're in tough fiscal times. My question is, what new needs did you submit to OMB that were not granted?
So we didn't, the preliminary budget was not necessarily a new need plan. It was a plan to submit for savings. And so we are in ongoing conversations with the OMB regarding service levels for next year and to make sure that there are no changes to them.
But, okay, to be clear, what new needs does the agency have moving forward that you are going to be pushing for? I mean, clearly your mandate is enormous. It's so important. I'm concerned that with just one new need being funded, what are you going to be focused on moving forward to get the new needs funded?
We have a strong relationship with OMB, and so we are in ongoing conversations, and so we want to make sure, like, for example, the financial literacy, which is a mandate that came last year, that will continue next year. So that'll be part of our new need conversation. I think that it's in flux, and again, as I mentioned, we have a number of program models that have had changes, and so it's hard to pin down the exact amount as we're still going through ongoing conversations about what we're doing next year and how we're going to best fund them.
Speaking of the financial literacy, who is running that?
Well, DYCD provides additional funding, and then our nonprofit providers implement those services.
Are you working with the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection on that?
Yes, we are.
So is DCWP's Office of Financial Empowerment actually doing the financial literacy?
I'm going to defer to our Deputy Commissioner, Susan Haskell, to further elaborate on what financial literacy is being done at these programs.
Yes, our relationship with them is really close. When we launched that program in the last fiscal year, they helped us to develop the curriculum. We're working hand in hand. We continue to have a very tight partnership with them on the financial literacy program.
But I feel like that's great that you've got a partnership. What I'm trying to get to is you've got an agency who has a whole Office of Financial Empowerment who runs over 30 financial empowerment centers. Are you partnering with them? Are they the ones that are providing that?
Yes, and we have put financial counselors in each of the drop-in centers for runaway and homeless youth, and they are helping to train, provide curriculum and train those workers so they can be doing it on the ground. I don't know that they have capacity to meet, to do individual counseling with every runaway and homeless youth. What we're trying to do is build capacity and knowledge and resources in the drop-in centers with their support.
I just want to make sure that the agencies are not siloed and that you're working collaboratively and not, in tandem.
No, we're not. And in fact, we just recently had meetings with the commissioner and her team, and we're looking to see how we can expand what they do in terms of financial literacy to other parts of DYCD, specifically just as involve young people as well.
Okay, one last quick question. On summer youth employment, the November plan includes a reduction in $5.5 million for MetroCards for fiscal year 2024. Can you talk about that reduction and how many participants last year received the MetroCard?
Sure. So the reduction was the savings because we were able to obtain accruals for it. I do not have right in front of me the exact number for the MetroCards last year, but we were able to distribute a large amount last year to our providers who were able to make sure those participants were able to go into from their employment.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Aviles.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, DYCD staff, for being here. Apologies if I am repeating a line of questioning you may have already responded to, but this one is very important to me, and we've been engaged in dialogue around it, the adult literacy program. Hugely important, and for the record, I have said over and over again how underfunded this work is. And how critical. And given the increases in the immigrant population in our city, we've seen upwards of 40% of our city's population are immigrants. Huge language needs. So in terms of the current DYCD literacy RFP, right, it has a total of $11.8 million in funding. For adult literacy, for adult basic education, high school equivalency, and ESOL. That's nearly $5 million less than the current fiscal 24 funding for DYCD adult literacy. This $5 million reduction means that services will be cut for 7,000 students, just over 16,000 students in 2023 to 9,000 in 2025. The RFP will also likely lead to at least 12 city council districts that currently have DYCD RFP funded classes to lose those classes. Yet the fiscal 25 preliminary budget includes $21.7 million earmarked for DYCD adult literacy, which is 10 million more than what is in the RFP. Help us understand the numbers here. So what is the intended use of the additional 10 million that was added in preliminary fiscal 25?
Hi, Councilmember Aviles. Councilmember Joseph asked a similar question regarding the variance in the funding. And as I mentioned to her, it's due to a technical adjustment that needs to be made. There's additional funding that's reflected in the budget function that is not necessarily allocated to this program area. There will be no reduction in slots to the adult literacy program moving forward. And again, the funding that you're referencing is associated with our Advance and Earn and YMI program areas.
So the current 11.8 million, there is no reduction.
The RFP currently that's out there reflects the baseline funding that DYSD has. DYSD, due to PPP rules, cannot include one-time funding in the RFP. And so what's reflected on the street right now is baseline funding that the agency currently has. As common, we get one-time funds every year, and when those one-time funds come in, they will be added to the RFP, and we will ensure there'll be no reduction in slots. So what you're seeing right now is the baseline funding that's reflected in our budget.
Okay, so in fiscal, what we're seeing in fiscal 24, the allocation in the preliminary plan was 46 million.
Correct.
For adult literacy. And what we're seeing in the 25 preliminary plan is 21 million, and that's a $20 million. 10 million.
10 million of it is associated with another program area. So that's reflected there. And then again, there's one-time funds that happen every year that come into our budget that is associated with the adult literacy program. So that's where you're seeing the gap.
So that 10 million could not be, wouldn't we want to baseline that 10 million so that we're not having these discrepancies?
I think DYC will always encourage baseline funding to our budget, but that's not our current, our current status right now. And so we're moving forward with the funding that we have currently in our budget.
So for the record, there were also discrepancies between the between what is allocated in the RFP and the overall program. How do you explain those discrepancies? Does it take $10 million to provide $10 million in funding for the RFPs?
I'm not understanding your question.
So what's the total amount allocated for funding to providers in the RFP?
The RFP currently reflects 11.8 million for the providers for the adult literacy area.
Right, so that's the total RFP. So 21.7 million, that's in the preliminary plan.
And as I mentioned, the $10 million variance is associated with a different program area.
What's the program area? I'm sorry.
Advance and Earn, and the YMI funding is reflected in that area. And so
why is it in the adult literacy program?
It's a technical adjustment.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is so difficult, but it would seem to me we also have a different line item. It should be there.
That's why we're going to do a technical adjustment.
Okay, I got it. You know, the numbers don't map all the time, and we've got to keep asking these questions. In terms of the RFP process, I know you've talked a lot about it. We also have been communicating by letter, so thank you for your response, Commissioner. Unfortunately, the response did not fully answer one of the objections or the real concerns here around eligibility and the NTAs. So in the example of my district, we have several eligible providers who could apply. One of them will get the bonus. There are other very qualified providers that are also outside that have long histories of providing in the district. Given that criteria, all those providers will be ineligible to apply. Is that correct?
That's not how we. That's not what the RFP indicates. It indicates that.
Okay, I'd love for you to correct it because even in your letter, it did say that eligible providers within the NTA and everyone else can apply outside of the NTA given if there are no eligible providers within.
So it also indicates that based upon the RFP, that number one, I repeated this before, and I'm sorry I have to repeat this again, that we're looking at.
Yeah, we've been repeating this on letters,
we
and
understand that. Yeah, we're going back and
providers
forth,
are very concerned, as we are.
I think that the best thing moving forward is for us to have a meeting so that we can explain exactly how community-based organizations that are doing this work, how they're not going to be impacted in the way that it's previously described.
I think that's what we've been trying to do over the last couple of months. I guess lastly, council members, your team, we are all pursuing equity, right? I think it is absolutely important. I think what is amiss here and how this RFP has been constructed, and I would probably argue this could be applied to the other changes in our government, right, that we need to do in order to front load equity and really lean into that, is somewhat of a disregard of the reality of the infrastructure that we currently have on the ground. And so what I mean by that is, right, we have an infrastructure, and if we are trying to shift that infrastructure to lean into equity, it seems to me that to get there, we'd have to invest in moving the whole infrastructure to produce more equitable outcomes. But it seems to me what this RFP is doing is using kind of the data points of equity, disregarding the actual infrastructure and challenges on the ground, and then not investing actual additional monies to fortify and move the infrastructure to appropriately lean into equitable outcomes and equitable services. There just seems a real disconnect with our intention and the practical realities and the fact that we're actually cutting services and not investing and expecting because we move a program or expect them to be within a geography because of an ACS that we're actually pushing equity forward in meaningful ways. So I feel like the statement here is, I would really like us to really interrogate this beyond just these kind of data points without the real realities of what is happening on the ground, because this is the pushback you're receiving from providers, from council members, from people who are not going to get access to desperately needed 2% of the need for adult literacy, right? We know, and we have an increasing community, English language learning community that we need to service. So I would like us to really look at this again. I really appreciate the agency over the last several years who've really been looking at equity and trying to adjust its own internal operations to lift that up. I recognize that work is happening in earnest, but something is really afoot missing in this analysis.
I understand that, and one of the things that I appreciate is the fact that we can agree that the equitable approach is what the methodology when we are issuing the RFP, since this RFP has not been procured since the Bloomberg administration, right? We also can agree that some of the infrastructure that you just referenced in terms of building capacity for organizations, but not only capacity, but also to serve the people of the highest need, are in communities that are already pre-existing programs in which organizations that we've issued, I believe, 2 or 3 addendum to make sure that we're fully communicating to the community-based organizations in the network, saying that it's inclusive. We're not excluding any organization from applying, but more importantly, we're making sure that participants who need the service has access to the services in those communities. And one of the other caveats that's part of the RFP, and I'm pretty sure, Council Member, you would agree, is that we have in there, as part of the building of the infrastructure, for nonprofit organizations to be able to lease commercial spaces in those communities and pay for it in the RFP process. So the investments in community and community needs are what the ultimate goal is.
How much additional money did you add so that nonprofits can now lease commercial space in different neighborhoods? What was the addition? Did we add several $1 million for that? Because the reality on the ground is to get space in any neighborhood almost, to set up infrastructure, to bring staff in any neighborhood is quite significant.
I wouldn't say any neighborhood. I would say neighborhoods where the highest concentration of need. So that's there. And where we increase it is with the PPP.
Councilmember, we're going to do a second round of questions if you want to continue. I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Williams. Stay focused. Councilmember Lee, are you ready? You can go to Councilmember Lee.
Sorry. Okay. This time, I just wanted to ask a few questions, and I don't know if there's a way to extrapolate this in the budget, but one of the things that, as Chair of Mental Health, Disabilities, and Addictions Committee, one thing that I wanted to focus on this year as part of our mental health roadmap is youth this year and mental health. And so between all the different programs with Beacon, ISY, the runaway homeless youth, as well as out of school, and then of course Office of Neighborhood Safety. Are there components of programming in there that are focused specifically on mental health? And how closely do you guys work with DOHMH or DOE? And because I know a lot of times there's different silos that are usually up, and I love breaking down silos. And if there isn't that conversation, is there a task force of some kind or something between interagencies, which I believe there is, but I just wanted to see if there were more specific numbers.
There is a mental health council that we're part of with our agencies, and yes, we work very closely with the Office of Community Mental Health. You named some of the program areas where it's increasingly important for us to have mental health services, and in many ways just to make sure that there's training and resources and referrals happening in all our programs, in the Beacon, in Cornerstones, in Compass programs. There are more explicit mental health services available in the runaway and homeless youth program area. That's been in place for quite some time, but Commissioner has been clear from his early charges that we're going to have to do more integration responding to the needs of young people on mental health initiatives. So I don't know if you're asking about numbers, but it's absolutely a priority across program areas. I'm only talking about my own portfolio right now, but also workforce and our community development programs.
Okay, yeah, if you can, the reason why I'm asking is because I want to know if there are specific, and this is where I'd like to hear from you all in terms of specific requests or recommendations on how we can better partner, where you think there needs to be more funding asks or legislative changes that would be helpful to your programming. And so just wanted to sort of put that out there because that's something we're going to be looking to do along with Chair Stevens over here. And so that's going to be a big focus this year. So I just want to let you know.
So I just
That's why we got you on the committee.
Council member, we are working with a focus group of young people. We had a convening in 6 of the precincts with the highest level of gun violence. And in our town hall with the mayor, there were two topics that the young people brought up as possible issues for them. The first one was mental health and trauma. How do we provide both mental health services to young people and meet them where they are? We've been convening, and we would love to have you be a part of that as well. Focus groups of young people where we are bringing them in and having real conversations on how to craft policies, besides the investments that we have and the working relationships that we have with Eva Wong and most of the organizations, and also having our community-based organizations to be able to provide, if it's not direct services, referral services with young people as well. I also want to add that with incentivizing the young people to speak and talk about their mental health has definitely allowed us to grow in this space to the point where the staff and DYCD, as a policy shift, when we procure these RFPs, especially those that have old program models, you're going to see, based upon the mayor and the mayor's charge, you're going to see mental health services and trauma services as one of the key components.
Thank you. I love that, and I think that's the way to do it, is to ask the youth, because that's where I feel like the community is where the best policies come from. So thank you for that. And does OCMH also give funding for those programs, or is it, how does that? Or is
So
it,
we're working collaboratively on exactly how to fund a joint program. Okay.
no, that's it. Thank you.
Oh, Minna's not here. Hi, I'm back. You're almost done. You're almost done. I mean, I got a couple more questions, but we're almost there. We're almost there. I do want to spend some time on homeless runaway youth. Everyone knows this is one of my areas that I've been advocating really hard for, because I don't feel like enough and support is done with our young people. So in this area, it's been reported that DYCD is currently providing services under homeless runaway youth programs for asylum seekers. Last week, the city reached an agreement that would modify the longstanding requirements for the city to provide shelters to whoever asks for it. Under the agreement, asylum seekers between the ages of 18 and 23 would be allowed to remain in shelter for 60 days before they are required to move out. The city may grant an exemption for example, individuals who demonstrate that they have been trying to secure housing and were not able to. How many asylum seekers are currently residing in DYCD facilities? Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, Susan, stay, because I got a whole bunch of questions for you.
Good morning. In Runaway and Homeless Youth Services, we are working with any young person who comes through the door.
Yep.
Many young people enter through the drop-in centers, ages 14 to 24. For young people who need residential services, we're going to try to find a youth-focused program but we don't track immigration status. We don't have hard numbers on asylum seekers in our programs. However, we are in constant communication with our providers. They know who they're working with. We do get estimates, projections from them. This time, it seems like a little over a quarter, a little more than 25% of the young people residing in the programs are asylum seekers.
Yeah, and I do know that you guys don't track the immigration status, so I am concerned about like how will this agreement impact services for young people who are coming there. So, because now with this agreement, they have 60 days unless they're demonstrating other things. So could you talk about like what things are being put in place and how's this going to play out?
I don't know if that will have a direct impact on RHY services. I think for young people who are certainly going to potentially require more resources, more time, more support, to be able to have a longer stay will help them in exploring other resources and other alternative housing. I think that's a great move for young people. I don't know that will have a direct impact on RHY services, but I do think it's going to be very impactful on the young people who benefit from the longer stay.
What do you mean a greater impact? Could you explain a little bit more?
What did I just say? I think for a young person who may take longer to identify additional resources, other housing resources, so having that additional length of time is going to be great for young people.
Yeah, I mean, we know that a lot of it, one of the reasons we fought for young people between that age to be in DYCD shelters is just because it's just a different level of empathy and love and support that they get that they don't get at other places. And so, I just want to make sure that we continue with that path and not get to a place where it doesn't feel that way anymore. So aside from the Covenant House, what other safe housing location, if any, are currently occupying asylum seekers? Because we know that there's been a huge influx there, but could you talk about some of the other places that are also seeing a huge uptick?
I think it's across the board. There is variation program to program. Some of the other providers that come to mind, I know Rising Ground, Safe Horizon, Project Hospitality. I really think that it's across it has impact across the board, but I can give you more details about those surveys reporting and where there may be like more demand.
Okay. The PMMR stated that in the first 4 months of fiscal 2024, 1,720 youth and young adults were served through case management at RHY drop-in centers, a 19% increase from fiscal 2023. What is the length of time someone is allowed to stay in a drop-in center?
There's no limit to the amount of times you can come back to a drop-in center for resources. I think in this way, it's a great support for all young people, including migrant youth, because it's a place you can go to get resources with no limit on your time.
Mm-hmm. Are there enough beds to serve youth and young adults, considering the influx of asylum seekers?
We are, more than ever before, I would say we are maximizing the resources that we have for runaway and homeless youth.
So we're going to say no, it's not enough beds.
Well, I think we also have to acknowledge that with the 183,000 that for the past 2 years that have come through our shelter, and I know you've acknowledged this as well, that with 813 beds, DYCD is a small player in this whole.
So we're gonna say no. So we agree. So why y'all don't want to agree with me? Just say no.
But I also want to highlight the fact that
yelling
the
about these beds
system
for 2
wasn't meant
years.
to handle 183,000 people seeking
Even
shelter
before the
in our
asylum seekers
program.
was here, we didn't have enough beds.
Yeah.
So I'm never gonna let that go. Even before that, when I got here, it was not enough beds. So could we all agree? Do we have enough beds for young adults? What's the answer? No. No, y'all not gonna say it? All right. I tried. I'm never gonna give that up until I get more beds. So I don't care. Huh? They don't want to say no. Dang it! I want them to say no. How many beds are providers for each age group in RHY?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part.
How many beds are provided for each age group in RHY?
It's 813 beds in total, and
813?
Yep, 60 of those are for 21 to 24-year-olds.
So again, if the answer is no, 60 beds is not enough. Is there a current process in place to address the need for beds at the drop-in center? Because I know that was a whole thing. Young people are not supposed to sleep at the drop-in center, and especially with the increase in influx. Has there been anything to address that?
No, drop-in centers are not shelters, and they don't have beds, and there's not like planned overnight sleeping going on at drop-in centers.
Is the agency aware of young people or young adults being turned away at drop-in centers? If so, why?
So this is an article that came out in the paper in which we totally 100% disagree with some of the facts that was cited in the article.
All right, talk about it.
In fact, young people, because of the amount of asylum seekers that we've been getting, the city has seen, we try to make sure through our drop-in centers that young people, if beds are not available, that they are referred to a DSS or homeless services beds, or they are referred to reticketing beds.
But we know our young people don't want to go to those shelters because they experience trauma.
So again, our shelter system weren't meant for this large capacity.
But that was even
before.
before.
We are overrun, and we're at a crisis in terms of the level of services that are being asked for without investment that we need from the federal government.
Let me tell you, we are on the same page. The federal government needs to do their share, right? You will never get me to not agree with that, but I do still think even before this crisis, this was still an issue. And, even in a crisis, we got to walk and chew gum at the same time. So we really need to spend some time really thinking about this, and even thinking about, the vouchers that we could be giving out with City FEPS could help alleviate some of this, and that hasn't been happening either. So, I think the council's been really trying to help support some of the alleviation in the shelter system. So maybe if we can all get on the same page with that, and not DYCD, because that's not y'all, but on the same page with the administration to start issuing these City FET vouchers, we could probably make some space for our young people. My next question is, has the agency been able to address the need for permanent housing specialists in DYCD-funded drop-in shelters? We know that this has been a successful thing. It's been really great to have these peer navigators to kind of help, and we know that was like temporary funding, but what does this look like moving forward, and is there any desire or appetite to have this be baselined and
So
permanently?
we recognize that housing navigators are important to the Runaway Homeless Youth Program, and we're currently working and talking with OMB to see exactly how we can continue that level of investment.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to talk about summarizing. Y'all know how I feel about summarizing, but don't get me started. All right, the November plan included a reduction of $19.6 million in fiscal 2025 and the out years that will greatly impact all New York middle schools by reducing the hours of eliminating Friday services and summarizing. What other impacts will this have on middle school students? Because it's my understanding that Fridays were some of the highest attendance. So can we talk about that? And we know why it's the highest attendance, because they don't want to go to class.
So again, we're back to the budget and being able to make these hard choices, right? So I just think that we need to understand that the fiscal conditions of where we were before and the way that we had to navigate in this space to be able to look at service and service impact. The good thing is that we're going to be able to serve 110,000 young people this summer. You and I are going to be out in the community, as we are every summer, looking at programs and understanding exactly that young people are going to thrive in the enrichment program. But I honestly want to put a pin on the fact that during this whole fiscal crisis, which we're still in,
I'm aware,
that service impact was real. But we are able to provide the critical services in support of summarizing and also working with our partners over in New York City Public Schools.
I am sure that $80 million that we're sharing with DOE could have been used and could have served the Fridays so young people could have programming Monday through Friday. You know, I remember camp used to be a good time. They used to go on trips and do all these great things, and, you know.
I think they will be continue to do that.
Not the same. Not the same. What other services will be eliminated or reduced because of the fiscal crisis that we're in, and specifically talking about summarizing?
Hi, Chair Stevens. There are no other reductions to the summarizing program other than what was reflected in the budget.
Does the agency have any other plans to change any type of summer program offered to middle school students?
Could you be more specific?
Just meaning, like, I know, like, we're reducing Fridays, but, like, you know, Fridays was the day where they actually did, like, more recreational, did the trips. So are we thinking maybe one of those days, because I know even in the conversation I had in the meeting, we talked about what does it look like in having more flexibility with the DOE schedule and not being so rigid? Will we be allowing, you know, maybe longer enrichment days or something like that to give young people some reprieve and not just the, you know, morning half sitting in the class and then the second half doing recreation?
You know, one of the things I have to give Chancellor Banks credit for him and his team is that we work very collaboratively together to make sure that the issues surrounding summarizing that you had brought to our attention last year in terms of, and the year before that, in terms of recruitment, in terms of exactly what a good program model looks like, we've been able to work through those issues and we've been able to land in a good space. Summarizing last year was one of the most amazing programs and experiences that I have been a part of, and I know you have as well because we went out together. And I don't see any changes in terms of being able to offer the same service levels.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, I think the other piece when we talk about collaboration, and I still feel like it doesn't feel like 100% partnership when it comes to the sharing of loads, and I still see DOE taking much more of a lead, and that's still a concern for me. And I'm going to always advocate to make sure that our program providers are having a say in the same way, because those things are still happening. I know that there's been great efforts to try to make it seem more collaboratively, but from talking to providers, it is still feeling very heavy-handed on the DOE side, thinking about providers having to have staff there to help teachers in the morning, and then at 12, the teachers are out the door, and thinking about what does that really look like, and principals having a lot more say over what's going on because they're in charge of the building and not really being collaborative. So, as we are continuing this summer, I want to make sure that we continue to make sure that our providers have a voice and have a say, and I know that things were put in place from the meeting. They were saying that there's what I like to call planned forced collaboration. And it comes from force. You got to do some forced collaboration sometimes. But it has to happen sometimes. But I still see the gaps, and talking to providers, they are still feeling that it is not as equal as it is being portrayed. And that's a disservice, right? Especially because we know, even when we think about the recruitment, providers are doing recruitment on a regular basis. And as we can see on the DOE side, no disrespect, that's just not where their specialty is. They don't do recruitment, we do recruitment. And so I'm still confused on why DOE is taking the lead on recruiting and inputting that information when it just does not make sense. I think we are expert in a lot of places, and that's one of them, and we gotta get to a place where we are leading into things and leading into them. And so I don't think y'all could disagree with me on that, right? Y'all agree with me, right? We are the experts, right?
We agree that
I forgot, y'all can't talk crap about
we
your
are
peoples.
joined at the hip, and we do collaborative programming together, and we don't separate the two in terms of wins for the city, right? So public school, New York City Public School, DYCD, we're joined at the hip, we work collaboratively together, and we run a very robust and good programming. If you have providers that are still having issues, because Susan and her team, they have regular meetings with providers to deal with specific issues, I would love to hear about what those issues are, and perhaps you and I can tackle those issues with providers and to make sure that they're getting the right guidance to make sure that these programs continue to be robust.
Yeah, and here's the thing, y'all know I will hold y'all in a minute, but I think some of the things, but especially microaggressions, and especially in the building, and so some of the things could be addressed by us going in and having conversations, but some things shouldn't have to be addressed, and we shouldn't have to be there to let a principal know that they can't just supersede a program director, or kick a kid out because they have an issue with it. And so some things we do address, and we always work in collaboration, but we know that it's still a little lopsided,
and that's why Chancellor Banks, to his credit, has elevated that decision-making to the superintendents. And the superintendents are who we meet with on a regular basis, just to make sure that the senior leadership within New York City Public Schools are having more of a say-so.
I'd like to add, our collaboration with DOE does get better every year. I think you'll see more improvements this summer in terms of like CBO access to enrollment information and some of the things you've been asking for. You acknowledged that things seemed like they were going to look better.
I did. I'm acknowledging it, but it's still not there. I mean, I just can't wait to the day where we're back to where only thing they do is manage the buildings. But that's just me. I want to go back to camp. I want my kids to have fun. But it has been getting better. Each year we address different things, and we did have a meeting the other day, and I can see that the efforts are being made, and things are being taken into consideration. So, but I'm still gonna push for summer camp. So I have a couple more questions on Summer Rising, and I have a few more questions, so bear with me. Almost done. We're at the home stretch. Does the agency have a process to address students enrolled in the Summer Rising program that requires to move from shelter? So is there like a plan to put in place, especially with some of our young people being asylum seekers and, with the 60-day, moving? And I know this was the issue in my district specifically. We had a couple of young people that were moved from a shelter to shelter. Do we have anything in place to kind of support and help those young people?
Yes. For example, transportation. If you've registered for a Summer Rising location and your home location changes, your shelter location changes, you'll have transportation to go to the program of your choice, the program you applied to and got a seat in, and we'll be giving supports to students in temporary housing, yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there additional support for providers that are serving students with disabilities?
Yes, I think we, again, continue to strengthen our relationship with the Office of Students with Disabilities at Department of Education in planning trainings, in collaborating on program offerings in sites, especially where they're co-located maybe with a District 75 school. We continue to strengthen the process for requesting paraprofessional support when it's required for a student to be successful. We we will continue to work on supports.
What is the rate of pay for students with disabilities and the difference between the regular rate? Is there a change in the rates for Summer Rising with working with students with disabilities?
No, I will acknowledge every Summer Rising program every DYCD funded program is working with students with disabilities. DYCD doesn't have a different rate, but we absolutely will offer support to help programs make sure that young people get the best service in their program.
Interesting. All right. That's interesting because they have additional needs and you need to have more staff and those. So there should. I thought that.
Well, I think I mentioned we could provide a paraprofessional through Department of Education. There are nursing, there are other supports, and those are costly. They're just not showing up in, they're not DYCD budget.
But what happens when paras aren't available? Because we know there's a para shortage, and that's been challenges and issues in the past.
I'm not anticipating any challenges with that this summer.
Maybe I'll ask DOE. They should be anticipating that challenge. All right. Well, what are the additional outdoor activities provided for students and during Summer Rising programs?
Outdoor activities. We love it when young people get outdoors, in particular during the enrichment portion of the CBO activity. There are local field trips, there's play. We will support providers to identify nearby parks if they don't have, like, something happens to their recreational.
Yeah, or they don't have a playground in their school, because that's one of my fights. I have a couple of schools in my district that don't have playgrounds.
That's right. We want to make sure that they have access to a nearby playground. Commissioner mentioned exploring futures for middle school youth. We want to make sure that they're integrating career exploration in their outdoor activities, including virtual and in-person visits to CUNY. The opportunities to explore New York City outdoors are unlimited.
Okay. What are your thoughts on why OMB reduced DYCD's budget for the program's supported due to a low utilization rate while increasing DOE's budget for Summer Rising programs? Did any discussions take place with OMB prior to reducing the reductions being made?
So you're asking us to provide an opinion on OMB and New York City Public Schools
I'm asking
investment in a funding source that sunsetted?
I'm asking you to comment on a reduction in your programs while another program didn't. And was there discussion? Did you guys have a discussion before? Was that made, or was that made for you?
We were not in the discussion regarding the restoration of DOE, the New York City Public Schools budget.
Okay, that's it. See, it wasn't a hard one. See? I have a couple more questions, but I have I have Councilmember Minute and then Councilmember Vilas, and I'll come back with my last other question.
Thank you so much. I did have a question that I felt was not answered that I asked in the last round, and that again relates to summer youth employment. The fact that the November plan includes a reduction of $5.5 million for MetroCards for fiscal year 2024. So I'd specifically asked, did all participants last year receive a MetroCard? And I feel like we did not get a clear answer on that.
All participants who requested a MetroCard or received a MetroCard for our summer program last year.
But when you're saying all who requested, how is everyone supposed to know that that is available?
So as I recall that the issuance of the MetroCards was provided to our community-based organizations, and they had direct responsibility to issue it to students who actually was of need. Now, in terms of what's happening for this Summer Youth Employment Program, we are still in conversations with OMB to make sure to see whether or not MetroCards will be issued again this summer.
But just to be clear, when you say last year, how many specifically young people received?
We can get a number for you.
Because I feel like you're kind of dancing around this and not giving us the number.
Actually, we don't have a number for you right now. We can provide you with a number unless Davida was able to look through her notes.
I looked through my notes and find them, sorry. So, and we also have Associate Commissioner Daphne Montanez up here who can also expand on the slots that were given out last year. But last year, DYC distributed 91,000 MetroCards.
91,000.
That's
Great.
correct.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'll be very brief. lightning round, no long tomes about how I feel about what we're doing. So today, related to the literacy program, so today you noted the current RFP served 16,000 people for the ALP contract?
The current RFP for adult literacy?
Yeah.
Adult literacy currently serves around 978 per participants. That's currently what our funding supports.
900 and...
I'm sorry, I apologize. A little over 11,000.
A little over 11,000.
Yeah.
What's the projected service level under the new RFP?
The same. We anticipate no service loss of the new
The
RFP.
same. So 11,000 will be
Approximately
the same.
11,000. There'll be adjustments based on the awards and how it's happening, but we do not anticipate any service losses in the next RFP.
Got it. And in terms of how much funding was dedicated to support literacy in the HERCs in fiscal '24?
A little under $1 million, serving about 900 participants.
I'm sorry, a little under 1,900,000 participants?
A little under 1 million, and it's about 900 participants.
Okay. I'm repeating because it's hard to hear in this
Not
room.
a problem.
And in terms of the projection of funding for literacy services in the HERCs for fiscal '25, what's the projection for that?
At this time, that's still being discussed as far as negotiations for next fiscal year. And so the HERCs funding was supported with the one-time funds that we received last year, and we're hopeful that we'll receive it again this upcoming fiscal year so we can continue providing our service.
Okay. And then a quick shift in terms of the cuts to Compass Explore. You'll hear testimony from a local organization, but we have, related to NYCHA, we have an organization that surpassed all of its attendance requirements, is overperforming, and yet is going to be faced with extreme cuts. Can you tell us what is happening here?
Again, this is not a reflective of their performance in the program. We value all of our Compass Explore programs. As the Commission has indicated throughout the testimony today, that DYCD was faced with fiscal challenges, and we had to comply with the guidance that we received. And so, again, we prioritize keeping whole our comprehensive services. And so for the Compass Initiative, we wanted to minimize reductions in our portfolio. And so, unfortunately, we had to target the Compass Explore program area.
Do you take into account the compounding effects of other RFPs that cut services and how they hit the same geographic community? So, for example, with Red Hook, NYCHA, they also got programs cut through the Department of Transportation, who claims there was an abundance of services that don't exist and they were duplicative contracts disappearing there. Not having access to a library. Like, the community has compounding problems and cuts all over the place, and it's the same kids, our most deeply impoverished children in the district. How does that factor into these assessments?
Well, Chair, Councilmember Avila, DYC is not privy to the information that other city agencies use when it comes to making budget reductions, so we can't speak to how other agencies do in the investments in those areas. What we can say is in DYCD, we looked at across the board, again, as I mentioned previously, attendance, participation, keeping whole, or making sure that we minimize any disruption to our core programs. And so what we'll try to do is, as mentioned, we use accrual pegs, we use revenue maximization. Where possible, we really try to minimize any kind of service reduction. And where, as the Commissioner mentioned, for summarizing, we prioritize keeping the same service levels. We made adjustments to the model, but we kept the same service level because where possible, we'd like to minimize any kind of service reduction to our participants.
Great. Thank you. I know you don't have access to everything else in the city. I would just suggest that perhaps conversations with the council members who are seeing the multiple cuts and how they're hitting, particularly our most impoverished, right? The community that we're working so hard to support, and yet we're all cutting them in different ways. So there should be a more comprehensive, maybe intergovernmental look at all those communities to see what we are doing to them instead of like everyone's kind of worried about their own budget and not realizing that it's the same families we're cutting across the board. So thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
I'm back. Hold on, I gotta put my earpiece on because I can't hear. Hold on. He's falling out. So I have a follow-up question for the Metro cards. So, and you just stated that you guys had gave out 91 Metro cards, but in 91,000 Metro cards, sorry. 91,000 Metro cards, but in FY24 you had a peg for the 5.5 because of non-utilization. So can you talk about how did you still give out the 91,000 cards?
We used there was $11 million that was given to DYCD to support Metro Cards purchasing. 4.5 was in FY23, 5.5 was in FY24. The $91,000 that's referenced was using the money that was associated with the 4.5.
Oh, and so that was just under the 4.5, not the
Right.
5.5. Okay. All right. I have a couple more questions. So, Daryl, you could just start making your way up here because he's all you, brother. Because I'm talking about Saturday Night Lights. So you could just start making your way up. All right, we'll just sit there. You got to come up at some point, so, because the next question I have are O&S too. We're at the home stretch. We're almost done, I promise you. So Saturday Night Lights, what is DYCD and NYPD's budget for Saturday Night Lights program?
Saturday Night Lights. Chair Stevens, you're throwing curveballs at me.
Y'all know I ask about this all the time.
Saturday. I don't have that right in front of me. I can get back to you on that.
Okay. How much overtime was utilized for this program? You might not have this number for
In terms of
NYPD.
DYCD staff?
Oh, I know we don't get overtime, so that's not that's on the NYPD side. They don't get the
Very
overtime.
little in DYCD.
We don't get overtime. We do this for the love. We get overtime and love. What are the locations and activities provided at these programs? And so I know we have, what is it, 136 now?
136 locations.
136 locations. Could you talk about some of the activities that are going on?
So, Chair Stevens, just for clarity, there's 141 sites that are operating.
Oh, look at that.
136. I'm seeing 141, but that's fine. I think there's also include the parks.
It is some parks open.
Yeah, we have directly 120, and there's 16 sites for Parks Department.
Correct.
So 136 total now.
Go ahead, Daryl. And
Told you to come up.
No, so we, SNL, and Chair Stevens, you know this well, a mix of activities. Primarily, they should be concentrating on a sport. From 5 to 7, middle school young people. From 7 to 9, high school age young people. For the first hour, it should be some type of intensive skills and drills learning of that sport. And the second hour should be some competitive play. With that being said, it's enveloped in a mentoring style component, youth development infused, connecting to young people, creating a safe space. NYPD officers are in those spaces, Chair Stevens. They're also connecting with young people to create that environment.
Yeah, let's pause for a minute there because I know where this is going. So,
I love when y'all answer my questions for me.
if you are aware of any sites in which you see NYPD officers not engaging
They don't, but
with young
continue.
people, we would like to know
All of
why.
them.
And perhaps you and I and Commissioner Caban can go to those sites and see exactly what you're seeing and what is being told to you. So I'm offering that up.
And Chair Stevens, to the Commissioner's point, some of the FAQs around this is both, one, if any sites of concerns, let us know. We are doing an extensive look at sites to ensure that they're vibrant, they're active, and these are the right locations. Two, if you have any providers in mind or any locations that you think could use the SNL program, let us know so we can put that on the radar.
I will give y'all that. Y'all did when I called y'all out a couple, but you don't have to love this program. So what are you doing to evaluate the success of this program?
So we heard you from the last, preliminary budget testimony. So we are actually working to try to procure a program evaluator to make sure that we evaluate the.
So you're trying to find a program evaluator currently, or?
We're researching that as we speak.
Do you have any specific SNL programs that's dedicated to girls as far as sports?
think
We have several.
Because that's some of my concern, where
we
it's
have
like
several. We have
a lot of the SNL programs are boy heavy.
Yeah, we definitely have several. The two off the top of my head right now, one in Far Rockaway that does girls volleyball, and then we have a girls soccer program. But look,
So you got two programs out of 136?
136.
You
Oh,
got
I have
136 programs,
yes,
and
yes, yes.
you can name two programs that are dedicated to the girls?
Right in the here and now, I can get you a list. We can
I
get you
want
a
a
list
list.
of which locations have which sport and then which
And
concentration.
I would like a breakdown of attendance with boys and girls in these programs.
we can
We can do that.
actually, we
Because
can,
I know y'all don't have it now.
absolutely, we can do
I
that
would
for
like,
you.
I would like that. Thank you. Are there any program activities available for students with disabilities? Like specifically for SNL?
I think we can provide that to her as well.
Let us respond offline and get back to you with a list of locations.
And that's a curveball, because I don't think I've asked that one before, too. All right, this is my last set of questions. Oh, look, these council members are coming back around, so I'm gonna ask my questions and I'm gonna let them close out. All right, so Mayor Eric Adams committed to funding crisis management system at $86 million for fiscal 2024 by investing an additional $8.5 million. Those with additional funds, CMS expanded to 40 sites operating in 31 impacted neighborhoods borough-wide, creating a greater demand for strategic legal wraparound services by CJU. CJU has been an integral part of the CMS since its inception and has helped. So my question is, in reviewing and fulfilling CJ contractual obligation, what factors were considered when reducing CJU funding as it relates to the PEGs? Mm-hmm.
Are you referencing the reduction to the legal aid?
Mm-hmm. I heard y'all
Gotcha.
whispering. Y'all mics was on. Y'all can cut the mics off when you whisper.
So yes, that was a reduction for, I believe FY25, are you referencing? Yes, so that there was a reduction to that contract in FY25 to meet our PEG.
Right, we also acknowledge the fact that, of course, it was very hard because we understand how impactful legal aid is in terms of the, providing legal services as well. But again, it's one of those decisions that had to be made in terms of how do we maintain critical services during this fiscal crisis.
So the CJU funding reduced CMS direct legal services, like we just said, and obviously it's a big, but they also included a 24-hour hotline, safe surrenders in collaboration with NYPD, emergency transfer housing for New York City NYCHA residents. So what, in considering, obviously we are in a crisis, right? But when we're reducing those services, are there other things that's going to be able to be put in place to kind of fill that gap? Because those are crucial and critical things, right? And so what are the things that are going to be put in place to kind of like fill those gaps? Because it's going to be a gap.
Well, let's also recognize the fact that legal services are also offered by other institutes, and also there's a lot of private entities that do pro bono work. We know that I believe it's DSS and public libraries and some other agencies.
The public libraries is being cut too, so we might not want to talk about them
as well. So we just want to put that out there as a placeholder that funding is available and services are happening in the community in terms of legal services, but also understand the fact that we do have city agencies like DSS when it comes to victim services that we lean on and we collaborate with to make sure that some program gaps that you just identified, that we can work together with the
So have those things already been identified? Because like the 24-hour hotline, the emergency transfer, like
So emergency transfers, we work collaboratively with DSS and also NYCHA as well.
In those cases.
And again, understanding the program gaps that you just mentioned and highlighted, we are leaning on other city services and other agencies to be able to fill those gaps.
And Chair Stevens, adding to what the commissioner is saying, the tough cut that we had to make with Legal Aid Society wasn't a 100% cut. They still have funding in their budget. We're following up with them to ensure that that funding is maximized and getting to the young people who need it the most.
How did you come up with the 1.5 million amount for this cut? And what data did you rely on to support the cuts for this amount?
So again, when we look at program cuts, I believe Navita mentioned we look to make sure that critical areas, critical services still can be maintained.
But did you talk with like the provider to like kind of see and like say, okay, what services, like did they have a say, or did you just like make the decision without even like kind of talking to the providers? How was that conversation had, or was it the cut made and then other than the data?
I'll defer to Deputy Commissioner Dara Rattray to explain more on how the saving was identified.
And in this case, and the commissioner said it earlier a few times around the state of the city in the moment in November where we had to make these tough decisions, we wanted to ensure that we weren't cutting core direct services. So those are the boots on the ground, the staffing that we have for cure violence, the crisis management system, and we had to make some really tough decisions around the peg that we put in. So we did cut Legal Aid Society. Were they part of that discussion? They were not. We are meeting with them now. Again, they still have a significant budget, $1.5 million, for services. We're meeting with them to follow up to ensure that we maximize that $1.5 million and getting those services to the young adults that need it the most, in addition to understanding the other services throughout the city that we can connect to our providers.
I think that, and just thinking about good partnership, right? Like, I think a conversation even before when you're having, because they could probably give you insight on a program that could have been, that made a little bit more sense and could have figured things out and had a more inclusive conversation, understanding we are in a crisis and we have to see each other as partners. And a partnership looks like we have conversations before things happen and not after. So I would like for us to get into a practice of like, when we have these tough decisions, bring them into the table. You're still gonna have to make the decision, but I think having the decisions together, it just looks a lot better and the cut isn't as deep because they can like figure it out. And maybe they can like juggle some things around and provide those services. And so I think that's part of the issue that's going on right now. And so thinking about how do we not only just use data, but also see our providers as partners in these conversations. Because I'm a little sad to hear that now we're having a conversation about it. And so it's like kind of like going back, because it's like, all right, well, we did it, but like we could have just had the conversation. So my last question is going to be with CJU providing legal services and to expanding CMS partners participating in cure violence and community members, how does this reduction in funding affect CMS expansions to 31 neighborhoods? Because I know you guys are in the evaluation stage and the program just been, being brought over to you guys. Like, what are you guys gonna do around some of the other stuff? Because I think the other pieces, in thinking about a conversation we had like very early on, this is a new program and coming under you, now it's gonna be like, oh, now we don't get these legal services in the blowback. And so could you talk about like what this is gonna really look like? I mean, because obviously we're in tough times, and I want to also make sure that like as we're making these decisions that it's a little bit more holistic, because like you guys said before, you're in evaluation stages. So to have to make a cut like this, it's really concerning that like it wasn't a conversation with the providers because you still are evaluating the programs.
So I think you actually provided the things that we need to do, right? So we need to go back to the provider and have those conversations to make sure that program gaps are being addressed, and that we need to look at those critical services that legal aid also provides. And I think that they are one of the vital agencies out there that's doing the real work. So to your answer, I think that we need to seriously have conversations with them, in addition to letting them know exactly where we're looking to refer those clients to who they may be able to have resources towards.
I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Brewer, then Councilmember Williams, and
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So I think earlier you said that about 18 staff people are working on contracts. So I guess my question is, it sounds like a small number because you have so many contracts. So I want to know how many contracts you are working on, how many contracts does each staff member have assigned to them? Maybe there's a variety of numbers there. And what's the timing to get those contracts done? Seems to me that's a small number of people for all your contracts. That's what I'm asking.
Councilmember Brewer, thank you for the question, and let me clarify. The 18 members are actual staff who work directly with the programs and sites. They also assist with the contracts, but we have of course, they came into the DYCD ecosystem, so there's a larger number of people who work on contracts. I'll hand it over to our first Deputy Commissioner to expound on what maybe.
Yeah, I just want to add that, just to clarify, we have separate units that work on the payments as well as developing the contracts and getting them registered. So that's separate and apart from the team that Daryl's talking about, which oversee just the program. They go out, do the site visits, do the technical assistance and all that stuff. So we have whole unit, I want to say like in finance, we have what, 70 or
Yeah,
so?
so we have at least 50 staff that are dedicated strictly on processing contracts.
Okay. Okay, and how many contracts do they process?
Well, it ranges. DYC has over 1,000 contracts.
I'm wondering.
So it ranges, and we've done a lot of work over the last year to streamline our processes to kind of expedite it to minimize the chance of any kind of backlogs.
And so the 18 just go out to the field? What do the 18 actually do?
I think he's referencing more of program oversight and support and technical assistance on a day-to-day basis.
All right, so how many programs do they have, each of the 18?
They have a mix anywhere from, I want to say 12 to 15, based on their portfolios. It could be crisis management system. It could be map providers. So they have combinations within their portfolios.
Okay, so there are other people in addition to the 18 who are doing that work? Because if you're looking, I'm trying to
Who
figure
are
out.
doing the actual contract development, budget development work, that's correct.
So, Councilmember Brewer, DYSD has our finance office has almost 80 staff. Our procurement office has almost over 40 staff. So we have a good over 120 staff who are dedicated strictly on financing and contract processing for our providers. What Daryl's referring to is our day-to-day program management and oversight to our providers, and referencing the 18 staff for that.
Okay, and you feel that that's enough? I mean, there's never enough, I understand. But do you feel that's not something that needs a new need? That, because, we do get complaints, as you can imagine, mostly, just takes a while. Your services are extremely needed, and small groups and groups that are doing God's work in many cases. So I'm just wondering, how long does it take? Or is there any improvement in the streamlining as a result of streamlining and getting these contracts out the door?
Yeah, sure, Councilmember Brewer. DYSD last year registered over 600 contracts for FY24 to make sure that providers were able to get their funds at the beginning of the year. As Daryl mentioned, we had a 25% advance that we initiated this year. As we're transitioning to a new fiscal system, we prioritize getting cash out the door, and so we made sure that we released additional $139 million just in reflection of the summarizing, SYEP, and a whole host of other things. 95% of our budgets are approved, and so we believe that we're currently adequately staffed to make sure that we can process our contracts and budgets effectively.
Okay. Maybe others would feel that you need more, but I appreciate.
There's always room for improvement.
But I appreciate that OMB is hovering somewhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you. One question. Thank you so much, Chair. In fiscal 2024 adopted budget, it included terms and conditions, and as of February, the agency did not submit two reports, one on adult literacy, but I'll just talk about the one on Saturday Night Lights, where you were supposed to submit daily attendance numbers disaggregated by location. Do you know if it's now been submitted?
We can ensure that we can follow up after this hearing to submit any kind of documents that are due.
Yeah, I just thought it was important to ask that question on the record because the chair spent a lot of time talking about her opinions about Saturday Night Lights and not really understanding how the programs are being evaluated. And the council put in terms and conditions last year, but you all haven't submitted that. And so I think a lot of times with agencies, we don't know everything. You guys know most of the things. Well, Chair Stevens does. But a lot of us are generalists. We don't have details of what's happening within your agencies. And so when we ask questions or we're asking for data, it's so we can better ask questions and better understand what's going on. So it's a little disappointing that we don't get the information in a timely fashion.
I clearly understand that, but I don't know if you were in the room when that question was raised, and we.
I wasn't. I had to.
And we acknowledge the fact that the chair mentioned that she wants a program evaluation for Saturday Night.
I heard you say that, but outside of the program evaluation,
but that's going to include the numbers.
I know, but whether or not you have a program evaluator, last year in the adopted budget, the agency, by way of terms and conditions, was supposed to submit this information. So in absence, whether or not you have a program evaluator, you are still required to submit that information.
So we'll take a look at exactly what we're required to submit based upon exactly what was asked of the council, and we can get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm back. I do have 2 more questions. So this is homeless runaway youth. Do DYCD's homeless runaway youth program have referral access to city-funded legal services for new arrivals? And what is DYCD doing to ensure that youth have access to immigration legal services? Yes, that was for you, Susan.
Yeah, we absolutely are connected with all city legal services to make sure runaway and homeless youth are having access to that. We meet regularly with our agency partners around resources to make sure that we're giving the most up-to-date current contact information and status. That's a really important part of the work with runaway and homeless youth, even before the migrant crisis, just making sure that every young person, not knowing when somebody comes through the door what their immigration status is, what their legal needs are, just making sure that all young people in runaway and homeless youth know where those resources are.
Yeah, I know this was a huge thing that for the, is my time up? It's a huge thing in understanding, especially with asylum seekers. This has been a huge uptick, and I know that it's been hard for everyone to get legal services, and I know that some other legal services have been put on the back burner because of the uptick with asylum seekers. So definitely want us to continue to think about what it looks like to make sure that young people have access to that and continue to expand on that. And just one more question. The local law 79 of 2018 reports that the shelter access report July through December 2023 shows that almost a 7,000% increase of youth being denied youth shelter beds due to the lack of vacancies compared to the same report for the first half of 2023. What is DYCD doing to expand RHY bed capacity to meet the increased need?
I think we discussed this a little bit earlier when we were talking about whether there, the number of runaway and homeless youth beds and the demand on those beds. I don't know, 7,000 sounds high. We definitely.
I know it does. I think that's why they sent it to me again, because that I know it was high, but I didn't know it was almost a 7,000 increase.
Yeah, I think we had a couple, like 100, 200, roughly 250. That's not something very close to that. Unable to access in the July to December period that were reported, and so it was a big increase from previous reports.
Yeah, but I also want to indicate, and I think we addressed that our drop-in centers were able to make sure that young people are getting referred, and I don't think that was reflected in the article that came up. Young people were being referred to Department of Homeless Services and also to the reticketing to make sure that those beds are available.
I hear you, but the kids don't want to go there. So we could refer them to the DHS is all we want, but they don't want to go there. And so what happens is they end up in the hospitals, they end up at the McDonald's, they end up everywhere else other than there. So we can refer them, but we know that that's not where they want to be because they are not getting the support that they need. So I definitely want to make sure that I'm going to continue to say I'm going to continue to fight to expand this and make this a huge issue because it is necessary. So yes, we can say they can go to DSS, but we know that that's not where they need to be. And we don't want them to go there. None of us want them to go there. So I will leave it there because I want to make sure that our young people know that they are being heard, and especially our homeless and runaway youth population that we don't focus on a lot in the city. And it is important that we know that there's a need, we know that we're in crisis, and we can't just say that it's crisis for some. But you guys made it. How was that? Was it too bad? We made it through.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you as always.
Thank you guys so much.
All right. Councilmember Williams, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Oh, look, she's still here. I think she'll know. I'm done. We have to take a recess, right? So we'll be taking a recess and waiting for our next group of folks to come in. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.
Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who have just arrived, a couple of ground rules. Please do not approach the dais at any point. If you have a question need to be asked, find one of the sergeant-at-arms will relay the message. Also, no food or beverages allowed. If you have coffee or any type of open containers, please remove them from the chambers at this time. We should be starting in about 5 minutes. If you are here to testify and have not filled out a witness slip, please do so at this time at the back table for the sergeant-at-arms.
Folks, if we could please find your seats. We're about to begin.
Good afternoon. All right, so we are going to get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second part of today's budget hearing. I'm Councilman Ralthea Stevens, and I serve as the chair